and men are going to start becoming, the provider of secondary income or raising parents or raising kids at home, right? And I think that
You really think that?
Yeah, absolutely. And I actually think that this is going to become more and more and more common, right? And I would encourage you to show me some sort of data that suggests having a man be the stay-at-home parent as opposed to a woman being a stay-at-home parent has any sort of negative effect on children.
I wouldn't say what you just said in public. That's pretty embarrassing. And it's a matter of common sense. It's not about data.
I think it's great, dude. I would love to be a stay-at-home dad.
Don't say that, man.
Mindwaves, do you think it's going to be more common?
Wait.
Being the man and taking charge of your
I'm curious.
dynasty?
I'm asking a question. Hey, can you explain why it is embarrassing for Mindwaves to state that publicly? I'm curious.
Because it's natural for the man to be taking care, like what the Canadian man said, and he broke out laughing. Apparently, he doesn't believe it, but it's natural for the man to be taking care of the woman and children.
Hey, I have a question for you. So all these female brained men, should they transition?
Might as well. No.
Don't you feel like you're losing this battle, Hake? Like,
what battle?
Against you're not winning. Like, nobody's like, more people are like supporting gay rights, and like the LGBT community is growing, and like you're just losing, man. Like, you're taking L after L. Like, why? Like, why don't you just like be a little more open minded and get on board, mate? Like, do you have any gay friends? Like, what's going on with you, buddy?
I'm fine with the world being evil. The world is evil. Most people are going to end up in hell. And
hey, everybody, how's everybody doing?
Good.
Doing well.
Happy to have you all here on this Friday of ours. I appreciate you all taking time out of your Friday afternoons once again. Talk to people you disagree with on the internet. I know it's not easy after a long work week to decide, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to see if I can talk to people I disagree with and possibly get into an argument on the internet. I know that's not everyone's favorite pastime, and so I appreciate everybody making time out of their days and their busy schedules. Let's go through some quick rules so we can have a somewhat standard of decorum. The first rule is when I'm talking, nobody else is talking. Let's say you're in the middle of an amazing sentence and you're about to dunk on Mindwaves for being a beta male. You're just gonna have to wait and show some resilience, some strength in that moment so I can restore order. I'm not doing it to bias any side. I just merely want to keep some law and order on this panel. Besides that, the other rule is that during people's intros and outros, you do not talk over them. I want to make sure everybody has a period of time to say whatever they believe without that encroaching upon them. This is Twitch, and I also want to make sure that everybody follows Twitch terms of service. I would like to keep my show, and so would many other broadcasters who are here today. And I would also ask you all not to go after people's immutable characteristics, race and sex and stuff of that sort. If somebody's gay, don't start throwing the F slur at them. If somebody's a Christian, don't persecute them for being a Christian. I want to keep everything fair. Besides that, that's basically everything. Is there any question about the rules?
Corrupt, bankrupt man.
Wonderful. Then we're going to go into the introductory phase, and you can all just quickly say who you are. Try to keep it short and sweet. We just want to find out who you are. We don't need a life story. We're going to start with last username.
Hi, I'm last username. My life story is I was born and then I started Twitch streaming, and the world was changed, or it will be soon. I'm the only liberal anarchist on Twitch and in Canada, probably. I don't know. And I'm here to talk about stuff. Good to be here.
Happy to have you here. One part of the tag team, the Market Justice Warriors, who many people dispute that they were wrongfully delivered a loss at the hand of the other tag team last week. Anyway, we're going to move on to Mindwaves, returning for the first time after multiple bans. Welcome back.
Hey guys, MindwavesTV on Twitch. It's been a long time. I think Dylan would describe me as like a fossil from like an older time of Twitch politics. But hey, I'm back. All right, and we're here, and hopefully Dylan doesn't ban me from his show again. All right, so we'll see how that goes.
We'll see how that goes. And I wouldn't say you're a fossil, right? I would never use the word fossil. I mean, ancient may be more accurate, more like an old building, dilapidated, maybe, and like the streets of San Juan or something. Who knows?
Mm.
But not a fossil. I'm a polite man. We're gonna now throw it over to Pixel.
Good morning, everybody. I'm everybody's favorite American commentator who comes on this panel sometimes. No, I'm an Aussie having opinions about stuff on the internet. Too left for some, not left enough for others. And yeah, I'm looking forward to having the conversations today.
Happy to have you on. Now throwing it over to C-SPAN's favorite commentator, IRI.
All right. Thanks, Dylan. I go by ImReallyImportant. As Dylan said, I focus on Capitol Hill, what's going on in the House and the Senate. We watch a lot of C-SPAN. We've been watching a lot of news here about Ukraine to keep up on it. And I'm excited to be to see founding father of Twitch politics, Mindwaves. So this should be a lot of fun.
Wow. I have so many jokes I could throw out there right now, but I'm keeping them in to keep my, my bias. And I'm going to throw it over now to one of our favorite stars on the program, Hake.
Hey guys, I am James Hake. It's an honor to be on the Hippy Dippy, my third appearance. Thank you very much. I'm host of the HakeReport, live Monday through Friday, 9 to 11, and I'm on Jesse Lee Peterson's network. Check out Church with Jesse Lee Peterson. It's excellent. Thanks, guys.
Thank you. I will also say that me and Hake have engaged on many occasions, and you can see any of those occasions on either my or Hake's YouTube channels. We are now going to throw it over to Carter.
Hi, I'm Carter. I stream every day on Twitch at Carter. I've been doing this for, I don't know, like 11 years, I think, tomorrow. Some shit.
Could you turn it up a little bit, Carter?
Oh, yeah. Am I really quiet? Sorry. When I'm in
quiet.
Discord, I forget that I don't have my OBS settings.
Thank you very much.
I'm Carter. I stream every day. I've been doing it for like 10 years. So
Wonderful.
coming up on like 10 years really soon.
Wow.
Thanks.
10 years. So you're in the
Yeah,
Mindwaves
but back then I
category.
was a gamer. I was like 16 back in the day. So
Wow. I think everyone was 16 back in the day.
yeah, but I mean like when I started Twitch.
Got you. Okay. We're going to throw it over to CamHigby.
Hey guys, I'm Cam. I stream on Twitch. I post videos on Instagram and TikTok. I write news articles. Yeah, that's about it. I don't know. You guys might have a hard time hearing me throughout this. My boom arm broke. So I'm just coping with my desk, like on a tension stand, just sitting here. So.
Okay, thank you so much. You can find him on many platforms, including TikTok. Anyway, let's move on over to the Canadian.
Hey, Brys Live. Relatively new to Twitch. Haven't really kicked into like full time, like everyday streaming, but I'm going to be doing that sometime in the future. TM. Yeah, that's pretty much it. My internet works this time.
No storms in the area.
No, there was an accident this morning where I didn't have power for like 4 or 5 hours, and I was a little nervous. Well,
I'm happy to hear that's not the case anymore. Okay, let's get into the first topic. It's a topic that's been on everybody's minds. It has been talked a lot about on news stations. It's been everywhere, and that is the Russian invasion of Ukraine, and what should the world's response be to it? I know the original topic was, should we send Ukraine military aid? I know we have a Canadian and an Aussie on the program tonight, or 2 Canadians even. By golly, too many. But basically, you can just replace America with your own country if they should send aid as well. So the question is, should we send military/normal aid to Ukraine? So basically saying, should we send any aid to Ukraine? Should that aid be of a military nature to help them in the fight against Russia? You get the idea. I'm going to start in the top right-hand corner with Carter.
Yeah. Overall, yeah, I think there's like it's the only option. So I don't think there's anything you can do. So yeah.
To both military and normal aid?
Yeah, both. Yeah. I
Okay.
also, for people who don't know, I have like family in Ukraine right now. So
Okay. We're going to throw it now over to CamHigby.
I would say military aid, no. Humanitarian aid, sure.
wait, sorry. Can I real quick? When I said military aid, I didn't mean like boots on the ground. I just mean like guns.
Okay, got you. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think humanitarian aid, sure. Military aid, no. I think that sending weapons like stingers honestly could be more effective than sending boots on the ground, right? Like, obviously we value soldiers' lives more than we value a stinger, but in terms of like
capacity for damage. A stinger can do a whole lot more than a soldier with a carbine. So I think that could really instigate Russia. So I guess I'll pass it on to somebody else now.
Okay, wait. Let me ask again. So when I say military aid, that means like we send them weapons, right?
Yeah.
So you're saying we should or shouldn't do that? I was a little confused.
Yeah. I said no military aid, yes to humanitarian.
Okay, got you. Okay,
but because I think that like sending stingers can be honestly more provocative than sending soldiers.
Okay, we're gonna throw it over now to our favorite internet Canadian.
All right. Yeah, I think we should send both. I think it makes a lot of sense on all fronts, both with like America's history and with like the way that everything is played out in terms of events and everything that's going ongoing. I think we should also definitely continue doing what we're doing in like Romania and Poland and other countries to help with like refugees, and continue sending a lot of humanitarian as well as the military aid.
Gonna throw it now over to Hake.
I don't think that we should support Ukraine with aid other than like the private volunteers and donations that, you know, a lot of people are wanting to offer. We should take care of America first. I think that what we've done in Ukraine may have caused even more problems than helped, really. So honestly, I think maybe Ukraine, because they're just taking cities, from what I understand, should give up the fight and save their people.
We'll throw it over to IRI.
Yeah, I'm going to say yes to both. I'm proud that we sent $350 million worth of weapons. My understanding is it's mostly been delivered now. But I do want to say I hope we don't see a repeat of the tomfoolery that took place in that debate last night with those two buffoons that you engaged with. And I hope nobody will make arguments for Russia in any way at all. Also, I think that we should stop the import of Russian oil. It's not much. People act like we're dependent on Russia for oil or something. We import about 7% of the oil that we import from Russia, and it's like 198,000 barrels per day on average. So I say we stop that as well.
Okay, I'm gonna throw it now over to Pixel.
To give you an Australian perspective, we've already sent $70 million worth of, our Prime Minister described it as lethal aid. I'm pretty sure it's defensive weaponry capabilities, but so that's already happened. They're already, skirting, I guess, because Australia is not an official member of NATO. We are kind of just like one of the allies that, can kind of help and skirt the rules surrounding NATO's defensive pact. I think it's so much more complicated than saying the Ukrainian people should just give up. I think that for better or for worse, they have gotten to a point where self-determination and fighting for democracy is something that most Ukrainians are expressing behind President Zelensky. And I don't think the idea that they should just lay down and take it from Putin is a good one at all. I think we should continue to attempt to communicate diplomatically, somehow at least to establish humanitarian corridors leading out of Ukraine. But like even after what happened yesterday with Moldova and Georgia attempting to join the European Union, I don't think that the other smaller countries around Ukraine are going to let this go. So I think it's a very difficult situation all around. I'm extremely stressed for the people of Ukraine. And yeah, that's about my take.
Okay, I'm going to throw it now over to Mindwaves.
Yeah, I think of course the US already has, and I think that that's based. I think that we should continue to aid them. It's really hard to tell how long or how far this this is going to go, or how much or how far Putin's really willing to go. I think that this land and the territory of Ukraine is highly sought after for a number of different reasons, geopolitical or economical or otherwise. And I think that it would be a mistake to let Russia gain control over that region because that has grave consequences for the West, including our European allies. So yeah.
Okay, and last but not least, last username.
Save the best for last. So I don't know. I mean, we were talking about what a state should do, But I mean, America probably will send them as much military aid as they can get away with diplomatically, without being seen as actually like getting involved in the war. There's going to be a practical limit to that, right? If you just handed them like nukes, Russia would basically see that as America entering the war. So there's going to be a limit to what kind of weapons you can give. And, probably the people in Washington can figure that out, and they'll probably go up to that point. And that seems fine to me. As far as, other kinds of aid, like humanitarian aid, sure, of course, go and help them. I don't think that's going to be seen as provocative or getting involved in the war, just helping people out. So yeah, seems pretty straightforward to me.
Okay, and with that is the end of the intro section. Is there anybody who wants to start us off? Okay, we'll throw it to the Canadian.
Okay. Well, first things first, I want to say like a side comment about last night's debate before we go into anything. I think I just want to give you props, Dylan, for bringing Destiny in as a partner so that it had somebody his own size to fight since he was afraid to fight you.
Damn.
But so to talk about the subject at hand, I think it's really important to look at like America's history to understand like a greater base of why you should send weapons to Ukraine. Because in America's history, you had France helping you out with like weapons, troops, and everything. And I think you could actually make a pretty strong case that America stepping in, helping Ukraine secure its independence from Russia, is not exactly parallel. It's not comparable on a 1-to-1 ratio, but it does make for like a really strong case to be like, yeah, we should help them out.
But I don't think you can justify the actions of one state based on the actions of another. Like I'm not saying that you're wrong when it comes to like advocating for military aid to be sent to Ukraine. I just don't necessarily think that basing the justification for that on the actions of another state is like
no, it's not like it's not an outright justification, because I tried to clarify that by saying that it's not like a direct comparison. It is more just that there's historical context of America being helped out, and in that pivotal moment, America getting that help was able to achieve their own independence, and it led to a lot of great things. Like love or hate America, like a lot of great things resulted from them being independent.
Sure.
Yeah, Cam, why are you against sending weapons over there? Do you just want to see them get slaughtered? What's the story?
Well, see, I mean, I'm completely open to like changing my mind. If you have an argument and you present it to me well, I'm totally open to changing my mind. I'm not open to, or I'm not advocating that Ukrainians get slaughtered. I don't think that Ukraine should just lay down and take it, but I'm really against provoking a third world war, which is exactly what would happen if Russia saw the U.S. or if the Russia saw the U.S.'s actions as entering the war, right? Does anybody dispute that a war between Russia and the U.S. would probably result in a world war? I'm not saying that's going to happen.
Yeah, but you would, well, exactly. You would have to make the argument that that would happen if the U.S. was to get involved in that way, right?
Yeah. Okay, but I haven't gotten there yet. Does anybody dispute that a world war would probably ensue if the U.S. and Russia went to war?
I think for a world war to take place, there are specific conditions that would be needed to happen with the conflict.
Okay, like what conditions? I think usually like
world
war start.
I think something. Okay, well, you have to understand like a world war, right? You understand like when you're saying like a world war, you're saying something like a conflict on such a level that is reaching America's shores, right? Like that it's on multiple fronts. It's not just on the European continent.
World like. Do you realize that like neither world war took place on the U.S. shores? Like just because.
Okay, if okay, so in your respect, what do you think would happen? Like, what would Russia do? Would they only fuck with like NATO countries? They wouldn't do anything through like the Alaska. Like they wouldn't reach through. Like we see bombers flying into Canadian airspace like almost every year.
I couldn't possibly predict how Russia would begin to attack the U.S. even if they even managed.
Okay, so if you can't predict how they're going to attack the U.S., so it means you can't predict what World War III would look like. How can you predict that there'd be a World War III in the first place?
Okay. Anyway, well, okay. How about this? Do we deny that a war between the U.S. and Russia would have catastrophic global consequences?
No. You're talking about nuclear.
The current situation between Ukraine and Russia has global consequences that are very
no, but not as bad
you're right.
As a nuclear war, right?
Exactly right. Okay, so anyway, I think like what last username was talking about, I think that there is a limit to what we can send before Russia sees it as us entering the war. And honestly, Russia appears to be so erratic that it'd be hard to tell what that limit would be. And like I was saying in my opening statement, maybe I wasn't very clear. We value the lives of troops more than we would value like a Stinger missile or guns, right? But a Stinger missile can do a lot more damage than a soldier with a carbine. A soldier with a carbine can't take out a tank. A Stinger missile can when operated by a soldier, obviously. But like what I'm getting at here is I think that sending Stingers is a lot more pivotal than just sending troops.
That would be an argument for sending arms, right?
Not if Russia sees it as more pivotal than sending troops, right? Like, don't you think if Stingers
yeah. What makes you think that that's the case?
I never didn't say that was the case. I said that it would be very hard telling what Russia's like limit would be.
Well, so they seem to have
because sending arms is absolutely getting involved in the conflict. It's not entering the conflict. It's not actively fighting in it, but it's absolutely getting involved.
Well, like I'm hearing two things. Like you seem like you're presenting this possibility of an escalation from Russia, but you're also simultaneously saying that you don't know. And I imagine that if I was to ask you, like, if you've done,
I mean, do you know?
like,
exactly.
Dug into, like,
none of us know.
No, I absolutely don't. I didn't propose this entire
No,
subject, and I even think that. No,
wait,
wait, one second. So the thing
sure.
is that have you looked at like any of the Russian thinking on a lot of these matters? Because like Valdai Club, IMI, a lot of these think tanks have been pretty active in the last few years of like publishing stuff about like Ukraine and like the Russian forecasting and their plans for like what Russia will look like.
I also think. Well, go ahead. I'll let you respond.
Sure. I'm really just like playing devil's advocate on this one. I would hope that the U.S. would stay out of it, but like.
The US actually can't stay out of it though. Like if it goes beyond Ukraine, the US has no choice. As part of NATO, they have no choice. That's why everything NATO are doing right now.
That is a completely different subject.
Well, it's not because it frames the actions of NATO right now. Everything they're doing at the moment is like in order.
I never said that I was against the buildup of a NATO reactionary force in Poland or in other countries that border Ukraine. I never said that I was against that. But there's a stark contrast between sending weapons or soldiers, which some Americans are advocating for, into Ukraine as opposed to countries that border Ukraine that are NATO allies, right? That's a lot different. That's a preventative measure for if Russia was to expand their invasion past Ukraine, which likely isn't even going to happen anyway, because it seems to be that they're having a pretty difficult time fighting Ukraine.
Well, then how do you expect them to fight a world war?
Sure. No. You're right. And that's why I think that we can get away with sending more weapons, is because it seems like they're having a difficult time. It's not like they rushed into Ukraine and took it over in a day, right? I'm kind of playing devil's advocate, and I'm saying like, what's your name? Brys life?
Brys.
Okay. Like you were saying, like, how do I know? The thing is, I don't know. That's the problem. Nobody knows. Nobody knows what Russia is going to see as escalation or like, as provocative, right?
Wait. Okay, everybody was talking at the same time. Hake hasn't talked yet, and he was trying to talk. Someone told the Hake.
Rather than speculating about what they might do, I don't think it's even reasonable to think that they'll try to get past Ukraine and into other countries. I don't even know that Putin, from what I hear, wants even all of Ukraine. I think he wants a portion of it, and he's willing to just keep that as a buffer. And how did we get here in the first place? Is it not the case that Putin has been warning that he doesn't want Ukraine getting involved with NATO and the EU and all of that stuff, because that would hurt them badly and it would put them at risk? He's been warning about that, I heard, for over 15 years. So what he did was quite predictable.
Why does Putin get to decide the fate of Ukraine, a sovereign nation? What makes it okay for Putin to decide that is the case for those people?
There are people in Ukraine who want to be either with Putin or independent themselves. There's been like 10 years, from what I understand, of civil war in those two areas that he first sent those peacekeeping forces into. So this is not as though Ukraine is this democracy that all wants to be sovereign. They are a corrupt country, more corrupt, from what I understand, than even Russia is.
So even an attempt at democracy at this point, you think is a bad thing? You would rather authoritarianism?
Democracy is not actually what they even want, nor do they have in Ukraine.
They're working towards it. They're trying, and it is. Zelensky was a democratically elected leader.
Yeah.
So they claim about Putin too. Zelensky has jailed dissidents.
He's been in power for over 20 years. He made himself prime minister for 2 years so that he could be president again. Like, what?
Wait, okay. Hey, you wanted to finish that?
Yeah, Zelensky, from what I understand, he has jailed dissidents and journalists, just as we've heard that Putin has. He's not this clean whistle that we pretend that he is.
Sure, but that doesn't mean that like Putin has any right, even if that is the case, to just invade a sovereign nation, right? And you could talk about how
it's a right.
Oh, well, you can talk about how the DPR and the LPR have some sort of presence in the Donbass region, right? But even then, they're not representative of the majority of people, even in that region, even in that one region of Ukraine. So, I think that's like besides the point.
Have those regions not been having like civil war for like 10 years?
But that doesn't make it okay for Russia, a neighboring powerhouse, to just invade that country, right?
What Putin has reminded us all is that this is like a man's world, and he doesn't want to just play patty cake and pretend that the EU and the UN are the only authority that gets to decide. I think that they've ignored his concerns, Russia's concerns, and that's why we got in this situation.
What are his concerns, Hake? Like, what will happen if Ukraine joins
From what I
NATO?
understand, I've heard it compared to what the U.S. experienced when Russia sent the nukes over to Cuba during JFK or something, where he doesn't want NATO.
There are no nukes.
He doesn't want NATO having Ukraine. He doesn't want Ukraine getting involved with the EU. He wants the Ukraine to be part of Russia's monetary system.
Why?
It's going to hurt them. It's going to hurt them and put them at risk in his mind if Ukraine goes more towards the so-called West.
But there are countries that touch Russia already that are members of NATO, and there is no plan of putting nuclear weapons inside of Ukraine. So I don't understand.
But has he not been arguing against the direction of Ukraine for the last 15 years, and the U.S. has ignored it, and so has the UN and EU?
He has been, because it's an incredibly difficult part of the Russian border to defend. Right now, with the Russian border the way it is up in Estonia and like those countries, like the land across the Ukrainian border is impossible for him to defend. But I think the biggest problem is that Putin felt like having democracy spread as an ideology through people with a lot of shared history with Russians felt like an attack on his leadership. It's an entire threat that even the idea of democracy could exist in Ukraine. And that is why there has been civil war in those two regions to the east for a long time now, because that is a complex part of Ukraine where it's hard to draw the lines between who is who and who wants what. But
I think it's also very important
how democracy is a threat.
It's very important to realize that Putin has.
One second. I didn't hear what Hake said. Could you say that again, Hake?
I said, please explain somebody to me how democracy in Ukraine, quote unquote, is a threat to Putin, rather than what Putin said was an issue to him.
Because Putin invented democracy.
Because so many people in Russia now have access to Western ideology, or at least conversations about democracy. And there is a lot of research to suggest that quality of living goes better for women under at least attempted or like some sort of democracy. Things look better. Things get better for people. And having that sort of ideology on his direct border in what he sees as a shared people is absolutely something he would consider threatening.
That doesn't make sense to me at all.
Well, okay.
I don't see that as a provocation that caused him to go in and deal with the things.
Mindwaves,
You
do you think
don't
there
think
is a
an
provocation that caused
authoritarian
the
leader?
No, okay. So the reality is that like this whole thing about democracy, while this might have some factor in Putin's mind, I don't think that this is at all any driving power or driving reason for Putin or Russia just in general to invade this region, right? The reason that they want this region, why Ukraine is so crucial, is because it has actually some of the largest reserves of natural gas, right? Which have been largely untapped. And then it also provides a strategic position geopolitically to be able to push their borders further into the west. Because right now their borders are very hard to defend between where Russian borders are in the Ukraine region, right? They also want access to the Black Sea as well, because there's a lot of this is why they invaded Crimea and took over a lot of the assets in there for drilling and etc. Right? So this is all about energy. This is all about economy, right? This is all about if Ukraine was a sovereign nation that was at all able to tap into its own reserves of energy and start exporting those to Europe and stuff like that, then that threatens Russia's economy, which is largely based off the export of energy, right? Natural gas and oil. So that's the bottom line at the end of the day.
So here's
Just
what
to clarify, I
doesn't seem right
think
about that to me.
Wait,
a
Mindwaves.
point.
Let's use a name. You haven't talked that much.
Russia already has access to the Black Sea through Crimea, and surely the economic sanctions that they could have predicted are going to fall on them, and now are falling on them, are going to offset whatever sort of economic benefit they would have from invading Ukraine, which is questionable because after you invade a country, it tends to destroy the local infrastructure and everything. So I'm not convinced that there's an economic reason for this invasion. It seems much more about domestic politics. It's just, Putin wants to be popular, and
no, absolutely not. Putin has had his presence in Ukraine for a long time now because there has been the threat of Ukraine being able to sell the rights to their natural reserves to companies like Shell and Exxon, right? And they actually tried to do this, but then Russia established a bigger presence and started backing those dissident parties in the Donbass region, right? And then those companies actually pulled out of agreements to even start tapping into those reserves, right? There has been this constant pressure and crippling of Ukraine by Russia to make sure that they are not able to access those reserves and they're not able to export any sort of energy into the EU, because that threatens their exports, which is like the basis of the majority of their 85% of their economy or something ridiculous.
So do you think Russia knew that like Nord Stream 2 would go bankrupt, or do you think like that is an unintended consequence of what is going on right now? Because like obviously that harms their infrastructure significantly.
To be honest, I'm not familiar. You could elaborate if you want.
Oh, it's a gas pipeline with I think it's the Swiss. Please, someone.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So yeah, actually, recently Russia has been building pipelines that aren't just going through Ukraine, right? So now Russia actually, even besides Crimea, or even outside of Ukraine, has a lot of pipelines to export oil, right? But the thing is that if Ukraine is able to become basically another European petro country, right? Petro nation, then that threatens their economy, right? They don't want Ukraine to be independent. They don't want Ukraine to build their own economy, especially not off of the export of energy.
I agree with that.
I think it's okay. Like last username kind of mentioned the fact that the sanctions are going to ruin their country. But I remember watching Putin speak, and he essentially was kind of trying to scare us off sanctioning him. So maybe he did this and he's pulled in, and now he's just stuck. I don't know. I just thought that was a thing. It's kind of everything we've touched on. I think Putin didn't expect the way things are going, and so kind of got stuck in the situation. I do think he did it economically and then didn't, tried to scare us off sanctions. Obviously, it didn't work. If you're from the West, you wouldn't think it would work, but we don't know. I'm not Putin, so
he must have expected that there would be sanctions.
Of course, yeah, to some extent. But I know that his speech,
right?
his speech was if you sanction us, I'll see it as an act of war.
Yeah,
so I think he was just trying to scare us.
He just had a speech today, or not a speech, but he had a statement today where he's it's actually really funny. His quote is something like, "We have no ill will towards our neighbors, and we implore them not to escalate any further, and not please no more restrictions."
Yeah,
So
before
honestly,
like months before the invasion, the Kremlin put out a statement that was like threatening the US with like colossal consequences if we sanction them. But that was just
corrupt,
when
bankrupt
we were
man.
thinking about sanctioning them for building up on the border. Or no, it was Biden had released a statement that was saying if they were to invade, that he would sanction them, and the Kremlin was like, there'll be colossal consequences. But at that point, you could already kind of tell they're going to invade, because they wouldn't be like threatening us over sanctions if they didn't intend on invading anyway. So like,
yeah. So I think one thing that really gets glossed over a lot is that Russia is more than just Putin, right? There's way more. I don't know. Like they often call it like this inner circle, but there's like what's that guy? Shuge. There's Lavrov. There's the guy that took over Ukraine matters for another guy. I forget. There's easily like a dozen or more like extremely powerful, extremely kind of different like military and civilian leaders in Russia that all like have different probably agendas, right? Like so I think that to try to like boil it down or be like really reductive and say that it's like just this like energy thing or whatever is a little bit silly, because it's clearly more than that. Like a state like Russia is going to have way more than just the natural resources on their agenda.
Well, what else do you think is on the agenda? Like, what else do you think is driving the reasons for this invasion?
I think we don't
Well,
know
you've
enough about like Russia's motives, honestly.
It's
Like, in
100%
well, so
geopolitical
there's
and economical, right? Like, yeah, it's also a strategical like point of defense for them
but
to be able to push
that
their
just
borders.
concedes right to my point that like you're I mean, it's saying
But
that
I
it's
already mentioned
geopolitical,
that, right? Yeah, of course. It is those two things though, right? It is mainly the economic concerns, and mainly the fact that they are able to push this buffer between them and the West, right? Them and NATO.
So you think there's no ideological part
No.
of this at all?
I think that no, I don't think that is a large. I don't think that that's much of a factor now.
Did you listen to
What?
Putin's first speech where he literally was like insinuating like the reformation of the USSR? Like, did you skip over that bit?
Yeah, but I don't think that Putin would be doing this if it wasn't for the other reasons. Though that is all just posturing. That is all just rhetoric. That is all just being a
Wait,
populist, right?
so
This is all just selling this
posturing
sort of
is the NATO
nostalgia for the
stuff.
USSR.
What posturing is all this like NATO stuff. He's got like his own significant PR spin where he's like consistently trying to, at least it seems like people have like let it go and it's no longer a talking point, but the whole thing that like NATO broke their promise of like not expanding, and like all these talking points seem like that's the posturing.
Denazification.
Well, yeah, I'm not.
Yeah,
Look,
yeah, exactly.
Just to be very clear, I'm open to the idea that this played some small factor, but I really don't think that this is like what is. This is not the deciding factor, right? If Ukraine didn't have those resources, if it wasn't a good geopolitical strategy for them to push that buffer into their territory or whatever, right? If it wasn't for all those other reasons, they would just having Ukraine be a democracy on bordering next to Russia would not be a justification enough for Putin to invade. No, absolutely not.
But
So
Mindwaves, like,
what do you think happened during the Cold War? Like, did you think the Cold War had any ideological basis to it? Because that definitely plays into where we
Sure,
are
but
right now.
there was also a number of other different factors in the Cold War as well, right? Like, yeah.
I mean,
Like I
as far
said,
as I know,
go ahead.
Russia's not running out of their reserves anytime soon, so it's not like they need to go take over more territory. I mean, this is trying to
it's not
restore the old
about-
Soviet Union, and this is what there's a connection to the people in Ukraine and Russia that he wants to have that back. I mean, the guy's got maybe 10, 15 years left in his ruling, and he wants to restore his country's glory. You don't think that at all factors into it?
I think it does, but I think that that's a very small part. I think that the fact that they want, it's more important for Russia to have this buffer between them and the West, between them and NATO, right? To be able to have a more advantageous sort of border between them.
But they already have
Is
not
it really
on their
advantageous
border.
though?
It is
already
because
have.
it allows greater access between Crimea and Ukraine, greater access to the Black Sea, right? It also gives them
They
pushing
already have
up.
access.
No. Also, something that's very important is to take into account the geography of the area as well. It's very hard to defend their border as is, right? If they were able to push through Ukraine and up into the what are those mountains called? The Carpathian Mountains.
Earl? No.
That is a much more strategic position to have, a much more advantageous position to have between them and the West. Not just that, but also the threat of Ukraine becoming a petronation, a competing petronation, because right now, Russia is literally the only exporting country of energy into EU, right? So like having that threat of Ukraine becoming a competition for them economically threatens their economy as well. So yeah, I think that those are the two factors that play a much bigger role than any of this restoration of the USSR and gaining these territories, etc. Right?
I think we all know that if Trump had been still in office, this would not have happened. It was Sleepy Joe's weakness, and Sleepy Joe is part of the so-called American establishment. And one of the things Putin said was that the West is like an empire of lies, and we all know that there have been crazy wars waged by the West, the UN, the NATO stuff, and it is in many cases based on lies and phoniness that Joe Biden supported, whereas Trump was much more reserved and reasonable and was able to work with these people and had a rapport with the strong men like Putin and the North Korean Little Rocket Man. So Sleepy Joe is not the leader that we need. And I think that we're partly to blame for what Russia is doing over there.
Wow. How do you think it was Biden that did this? Or like, what did Biden not do or do that led to this?
I think that there was a lot of ignoring of Putin's concerns that he was constantly voicing from
what
what I've heard.
What were his concerns?
I don't know, but I know that there were... Is it not true that we've ignored his concerns in the last several months?
Okay,
wait.
Everybody tried to talk at once. I
agree with Hake.
So Carter agrees with Hake. You've won one over, Hake. Congratulations.
Nice.
We're throwing it over to last username.
I just want to know, what concerns does Putin have that America should have been doing something about, and what would they do?
I don't know.
I don't know.
Why do you think that that's the issue then? If you don't know,
because do you really think that this would have happened under Trump rather than under Biden?
Probably. I don't know.
I know what the concerns are, but I don't know that they have any credit to them. So Putin has claimed that his invasion is predicate, like he basically wants to denazify Ukraine. He claims that there's a genocide of native Russians happening in Ukraine. I don't remember what else he said. Those are the two big ones: a genocide and the denazification.
And he didn't want them to join NATO. And
the fact of the matter is that this has been a conflict that's been going on between these regions for a long time, even outside of U.S. involvement, right? So whether or not we had Trump, whether or not we had anybody else as president, it would have been. I don't think it would have mattered much, right? This was going to happen. These things were escalating even outside of the influence of the U.S. or NATO.
Well, one of the really smart, intelligent, educated men on this panel, please just inform us all again why Trump was impeached the first time?
Because he was amazing.
We talked about
he had a perfect phone call.
I was on the show.
Yeah,
he withheld funds. He withheld funds, military aid for 2 months, ultimately from Ukraine. But I actually agree with Hake that this wouldn't happen. That's because Trump was in Putin's pocket, and his goal was to break up NATO. He probably would have broken it up in his second term, according to John Bolton, his NSA for 2 years. So if that's what you want to see, then I guess mission accomplished. But I'd prefer to see the strongest military alliance ever stay intact.
NATO is not the friend of America that we pretend that it is, nor is the UN. These are all snakes. And we have a snake in office right now working with them.
How can you say that, Hake, when they've kept world peace for 70 years through these organizations?
And U.S. is the main driving countries in the NATO. What do you mean? Like NATO is the U.S. for all intents and purposes.
I don't know that they're snakes, or that they're trying to establish the new world order or whatever might be getting thrown around here, but the UN is definitely a joke. I mean, look at the Humanitarian Council and look who sits on it. China sitting on the Humanitarian Council.
And there are a lot of communists who are running
the UN
like
is not
all
NATO,
that stuff.
What?
We're
talking about UN. I'm not talking about NATO. I'm not pretending it's the same thing.
Hake, does your nationalism in regards to America first, kind of like putting America first, does that mean that you think that America should not have any allies?
We can have
Do you think-
allies, but we don't have to just pander to them and cave to them. There's this big bandwagoning of, oh, Ukraine, Ukraine, Ukraine.
Helping
When there's a lot of evil done within Ukraine and bad things done by Zelensky, even in this war, arming civilians to just be like guerrilla warfare, getting them killed and breaking
I'm
Geneva
surprised you're
Conventions,
against
according to
that.
what I've heard.
They're being invaded.
What choice did he have? What
Wait,
choice
wait,
did
wait.
he have?
You didn't have to
defending
do that.
against
That's,
defending an ally against an
When does a
invasion.
patriotic
wait,
American not
wait.
want to arm civilians?
Okay, stop for a second. Okay, I understand. Hake is the trailblazer here. He's the one dropping the truth bombs. So we gotta let Hake respond when you ask him a question like that. So Hake, sorry.
So helping people can often be a hurt. You're like enabling evil oftentimes. And I think that that's what's partly happened is that Ukrainian civilians, plainclothes civilians, have been given these AK-47s. In some cases, they've committed crimes against fellow Ukrainian citizens, and they've broken Geneva Conventions by not being in uniform and all of that stuff. And it's just put them in. Many of them have died unnecessarily by being armed, going up against the Russian army. Some of them, if they want to do that, I guess they can. But if isn't breaking Geneva Convention a pretty serious quote-unquote war crime?
No.
Not if you're
You want stricter gun control.
Internet, just like the UN, international law is a joke. The UN has like international law, but what is there to enforce it? Absolutely nothing, unless one of two things happen: either the country decides to domestically prosecute war crimes, or the foreign entity that wants to prosecute is occupying the country that they're alleging war crimes against, which both are incredibly unlikely unless Russia tries to allege war crimes. Well, I get, okay, sure. Maybe Russia could occupy Ukraine and allege war crimes and try to prosecute them. But if they took it to like international court, I don't think that it would get very far. I'm
more concerned about the present, because the alleged war crimes is basically they're justified according to the Geneva Convention. What I've heard is that a civilian, plainclothes civilian, going after an army armed like that, they're
Ukraine
justified.
A component of the
they're justified. Hold on, they're justified in just executing them right there on the spot. So and I think that that's partly what's happening.
Yeah, but I mean,
Ukraine.
This is the problem with war, with like war law, or like wartime law, right? Nationally, is that war isn't just black and white, and there's always going to be there's a difference between civilians taking cover inside their apartment and civilians acting as militants on the street. Obviously, there's like a huge difference there. And I'm like surprised that you're against like civilian development.
It's not that I'm against it.
Invaders.
It's that he's arming them, putting them as sheep to the slaughter.
If a foreign country invaded America, I would hope that whoever's president did the exact same thing for us. Except the mistake that Ukraine apparently made and we didn't, is they didn't have the right to bear arms until recently. So they didn't have the guns, but Americans have the guns already. Maybe they could have better guns to fight.
NATO has been supporting Ukraine in the militarization of their people, though, since 2014. Like, the Ukrainian military is surprisingly well trained because they have been supported by NATO since 2014, since the invasion of Crimea.
What I heard was that the Russian army is the number 2 army or military in the world. So I don't know. I think that he's just massacring his own people. And
you have to understand that those rankings are usually just people like behind a keyboard, and not like it's kind of like a LARP and somebody making an estimation and like an evaluation, not like, so there's going to be inherent flaws in this, right? Like, because obviously we're seeing a much smaller nation put up weight. Because when you look into a lot of different communities that have talked about this, everybody expected Ukraine just to get rolled over in a few days. And we're seeing that's not happening.
It is really hard to figure out like actual like casualties and stuff,
right?
Because of propaganda on both sides. But it seems like Ukraine is putting up a pretty good fight.
And there's a lot of casualties.
If we were attacked
too.
And if we were attacked, would you think it's a crime for the government to hand out weapons to defend our nation? Would you also think that's a crime?
No.
For the civilians to protect? So why is it
No,
different?
the issue is then Russia feels justified in executing these people summarily.
But they're already
That's the
striking
issue.
these locations. Like
They're
their
not
artillery
necessarily
is
going after.
indiscriminately. No, okay, because this is the thing. They happen to have hit a number of residential areas that had nothing strategic in proximity of it. So they're clearly either like just indiscriminately firing artillery into certain areas, or they're comfortable like attacking like residential areas. So it's not just like
I think
this person is holding a weapon, so I'm justified in fighting back.
I know,
right?
but they're trying to break them because they're not breaking. So you're just
So are
you're
you
only
just
prolonging,
Wait, stop. Wait, guys, you gotta let him finish a sentence. Continue.
you're only prolonging their suffering and increasing their casualties. And again, Ukraine is not innocent in this, and all of this helping them. I think the Azov, what is that Nazi regiment, supposedly neo-Nazi regiment?
The Marines?
The militia.
They're pulling in Ukraine. I'm talking about. They're pulling civilians out of cars who are trying to flee. Like I heard that they pulled a married couple, a man who was between that 18 to 60 who was banned from leaving the country, and shot them both in the head and killed them.
Oh,
Ukrainians.
Yeah, no, I agree with you on that, Hake. I don't think that they should be banning men between 18 and 60 from leaving the country. But I think that if civilians want to arm themselves or receive arms from the state and fight against a foreign invader, I have no issue with that.
If those civilians,
if
it's to their own
disturbing,
will.
Actually.
What?
So, hey, you're justifying a cruise missile
from leaving the country.
You're justifying a cruise missile being launched at a residential building by the Russians. Then
I'm not justifying it. I'm saying that that's what happens when you prolong this war, which is what we're
when
doing
you say
by
so
propping up Ukraine as though there's some innocent victim.
Wait,
Okay,
how
but when you have
are
a
you saying that the
situation-
Ukraine is at like in some way responsible for the Russian invasion of their own country? And in what way? Can you spell that out for me?
Like Zelensky has been begging for the West to get over involved. He's been saying, "Oh, do this no airspace thing and do this and do that." And I don't think that he truly cares about his people. I'm not convinced at all.
He was asked if the United States it offered to send troops, if he would accept that, and he said no, he just wants arms, right? So I don't know what you're talking about.
He wanted planes shot down. He wanted to shut down their airspace.
Are you talking about when we offered him an evacuation and said he doesn't need a ride, he needs bullets?
No, he said
no. Right. He's specifically Hake is right. Hake is correct that he did ask. And Trudeau had a statement today where they said they're not. Yeah, he said that we're not going to support a no-fly zone over Ukraine because that would mean a direct involvement of NATO jets.
But basically what Hake is saying here, just to make it very clear, is that look, Putin has 3 demands, which you haven't even laid out very clearly, right? Putin's 3 demands are Ukraine never be allowed to join NATO, NATO and the U.S. withdraw all armed forces from the Eastern Europe, and push it back to basically pre-1997 boundaries of NATO. And the third one is to freeze the NATO alliance as it is right now and rule out any future expansion of members without the Russians' consent, right? So why are you saying that if Ukraine is not willing to agree to these demands, or the US or NATO is not willing to agree to these demands, that somehow Putin is justified, or it makes reason that Putin has justification to invade Ukraine? How is that at all the case?
I'm not saying.
And why should we cave to Putin's demands?
Wait. Okay. You're giving him a lot of questions.
Go for it.
I'm not saying that he's justified or unjustified. I'm saying, look what happened.
Wait, Mindwaves, I have a question. Did Zelensky actually say that he didn't want like actual troops from the West? Because I never saw that. I only said that he.
I actually, all right. So I think I was being a little bit hyperbolic. I think it actually was about the what he said he wants. About the evacuation.
Yeah,
saying that
he said he wanted bullets. Yeah, right. Which is commendable, right?
Well, but he did ask for a no-fly zone, and that essentially is boots on the ground, basically. How else are you going to enforce it?
Which I think is fair, and I think we should. I think that the U.S. would be like totally justified if the Ukraine like actually needs that, and the U.S. is in the position to provide that. I think that's fine. Yeah.
I don't think
No,
that
absolutely not. That's
No
outrageous.
one's in the position to,
Because
if you do that, you shoot down a Russian plane. It's all right. Goodbye.
yeah, exactly. Like, so there's
Yeah,
only
that's
two ways that
definitely
this
entering
plays
the
out,
war.
right? The
Well,
only two
to
ways
me,
that
it
this
depends
plays
on
out
how
is that
far
you
Russia
specifically
takes it.
send.
Okay, let's let the
Yeah.
Canadian finish.
Thank you, I appreciate it. Because yeah, the Trudeau had a lot to say about this, so I feel like a Canadian perspective is really valuable. So, the only two ways that this plays out is we specifically send them jets that they have no sweet fucking clue how to fly, because all they've flown were like I don't know, the SU whatever and the MiG something or other, and Canada and NATO only don't have those jets as far as as to my knowledge. Or we send our jets and our pilots, which Russia will interpret as direct involvement and respond in some way that we don't really want
Yeah,
to
I
deal
think
with.
that would be like the last resort if they launched a full scale invasion like on every I don't know, on like a cluster of European countries or something. Like I don't that's literally like risking nuclear warfare, and would obviously cause a war between America and Russia, which is the last thing we want. And I don't know. I think what's happening is horrible. Obviously I support Ukraine and I hope they walk out the other side, but um I would not risk nuclear warfare or nuclear. I always say it wrong because I was raised in like a rural white
I
area where
understand your
everybody says
pain.
things horribly. Risking nuclear warfare would obviously put the lives of every single American in jeopardy, and I don't think it's worth it.
I think everything NATO is doing right now is an attempt to avoid any sort of nuclear situation. I think that is exactly what they're doing right now. Whether it works, well, we're all going to hope that it does. But I do feel for the Ukrainian people because their location and where they are just post World War II, they were always going to be in this really difficult position. And I just really feel for the Ukrainian people. And I wish this could have been handled with diplomacy rather than getting to the point where it is now. And I just find it so interesting that Trump's propaganda towards authoritarianism has resulted in this conservative sympathy for authoritarian dictatorship. Like, is that what you want, Hake?
What propaganda?
It's
Wait,
the propaganda is this everybody feels sorry for Ukraine propaganda. There's this just melodrama about it that everybody's just on board. Doesn't that make you suspicious of that propaganda?
Oh,
No,
I absolutely am suspicious of the media, but I am also someone who has seen American media like do the exact same thing, right? You can be
Right.
suspicious of
Black Lives
media
Matter. Yep.
and still realize that this was an invasion of Ukraine by Putin. And I know I'm
And
not
why is
talking
that
about
wrong?
Black Lives Matter. I'm talking about when Tucker Carlson was like, Australia is a communist dictatorship. Like, I'm just over here just vibing, right? Like, not a
internment
thing.
camps for people exposed.
Why didn't we just say
I
there
just
was
want to take a second to say how ridiculous it is to call civilians in a free nation being slaughtered by an invading country melodramatic. But all right, go for it. Somebody else.
I mean, we got to acknowledge that it's like wartime, and there's going to be propaganda coming from both sides regardless. There's going to be propaganda coming from Russia, and there's going to be propaganda coming from Ukraine. And I've seen a lot of like stuff on, I don't know if you could even necessarily call it propaganda, that just comes from morons not doing any research whatsoever. A lot of it is stuff about Zelensky, but there's also a lot of stuff about Putin and people supporting Russia that's coming out that is just the product of morons not doing research.
I'm
I also
really
think
biting my tongue about a comment about panels, but yeah, morons and not doing research.
Look,
Well,
I did 1 hour of research. I read a lot of Wikipedias, okay? I'm well qualified.
I mean, we're all just like creators, right? But it's also the way that this has been covered online by creators. A lot of people, I think, are taking these really interesting positions within like the media landscape because of main character syndrome. The idea that you know something that nobody else could know, right? The idea that you have all of the information or you have the information that other people just aren't seeing, right? Like, that's absolutely playing into the way that this is covered online.
I mean, I think a lot of people are just kind of like when we see the thing with Zelensky, I don't even
Cut out.
how people got away with this. Can you hear me? Is it working now?
You cut out, but just repeat what you said.
Yeah, like this thing with Zelensky and the body armor, where he's like holding the helmet, and everybody thought he was on the front lines, like fighting for his country. To his credit, he is in Kiev, which is pretty close to the front lines, but he's not fighting. People thought that he was like fighting for his country. Doesn't even have a rifle. He's like allegedly on the front lines. Pictures are from April of 2021. Like, I don't even know how that stuff slipped through, and people didn't take 2 seconds to think like, oh, if he was on the front lines, wouldn't he probably have his helmet on? But I don't. I think it's just people posting stuff up and not doing a lick of research or thinking before they do it.
I'm curious. You said that you don't support sending weapons. Did you support Trump sending javelins when he was president?
To Ukraine?
Yeah.
I think there's a difference between sending weapons to a country while they're at war and sending weapons to a country not when they're not at war.
That was in direct retaliation to a war or an impending, invasion, essentially.
To the buildup on the border?
Yeah, but I mean, listen, Ukraine and Russia, like everyone has said, since 2000, I mean, when 2008 happened, Georgia, Ukraine asked everyone for help over and over and over and over. They've actually done it since they gave up their nukes. We promised them that we would help them.
Oh, yes, I know. Okay, but that agreement was very loose. It happened, what was it, 1933? Or not 1930, 1993? Sorry, no, 1993. Is that what it was?
I think they gave up their nukes in 97, but I can't remember.
Yeah.
So yeah, they gave up their nukes in 97.
I think the agreement was in 96. I'm pretty sure.
Okay, sure.
Why couldn't we keep it? We're the most rich, powerful nation in the world.
Clinton lied and Ukrainians died.
Okay, so the agreement was made. You said, what did you say, 97? But I think the like loose agreement that everybody
94.
references was made like several. There we go, 94. I thought it was 93. So made in 93 or 94. Sorry. But it was very loose. It wasn't like, it's not like we signed our name on a contract, and Ukraine didn't even really give up their nukes because they wanted protection from the United States. They gave it up because they wanted to be seen as an outlier in the region, and they wanted to impress the West. That's why they gave up. That was the primary reason that they gave up their nukes. But I wouldn't, if I had to break a promise to protect the lives of every American, I would do it in a heartbeat. I don't think that this agreement that we allegedly made in 1994 justifies sending, obviously there's a difference between like boots on the ground and weapons, but a lot of people are trying to use that agreement to justify sending troops. Right.
It wasn't loose. So it was signed, but it just didn't. It didn't promise them. It was not a defense alliance, right? It just recognized their sovereignty.
It was just more so, sovereignty, or like a agreement that like the West would be there for them, is to my understanding, right? And like that's what they were promised.
A lot of people interpret it as that we would protect their sovereignty, which is the part.
There's no way to. There's no, like, it's not ambiguous about that. The only promise that it made in their defense is that it would seek a UN Security Council resolution to defend them if someone invaded them, right? Which they've already done.
I also I'm not 100% sure about this, but did Ukraine even have the infrastructure to use their nukes? I don't think they really did. It was just a stockpile
that's the
left
thing.
behind.
The nukes were not super useful to them. They weren't their nukes, right? They were Soviet nukes that they didn't have the nuclear program to maintain. It would have taken them years just to get them operational, and then they would have built them and maintain them. So it was, they didn't. It was a good decision to give them up, probably, and they did not get any kind of defense alliance in exchange for it.
So Cam,
they did to get the United States and Russia recognizing their sovereignty, right?
What's that, Ira?
I have a question for Cam and Hake, actually. Sorry, Ira. I'll ask it really quick and let you get to yours.
Okay, and then we're going to go to Ira, and then I think we're probably actually going to move on to the next topic soon. Because it's a big topic, because a lot was covered by Biden's speech, and I'm going to ask about the certain sections of it. So I hope everybody in here watched it, right? By the way, Biden's speech?
Hell yeah.
Wonderful.
Hell yeah, brother.
I'm the most patriotic Australian. Yeah, I totally watched it.
Okay, Beers?
So
sorry, I said it wrong, but I turned 21 and now alcohol's on the mind. You know how it is. Get in here.
I can't
I'm
believe
from Nova Scotia. We love to drink here. We drink our problems away here.
Thank you. Hey,
you're
the only one of very few people on this panel that did that. See, that shows Hake is a quality man.
Nice.
Continue.
Yep, showing up. So I've heard Cam say that he's got like a really strong position against sending troops to places. And in tandem with Hake's thing about
Didn't say that.
well, sorry, like boots on the ground, because I'm really interested in whether or not this rings true when we look at like Trump and him sending troops to Saudi Arabia when the oil facilities were being attacked.
Again, I haven't said, to be clear, I haven't said a single thing about Trump the entire time I've been on this panel. I haven't defended Trump a single time. Nothing of that nature. I actually, not even a single time I've ever been on the Hippy Dippy have I attempted to defend Trump or said anything in support of Trump or anything to that effect. I also never said that I was against sending troops places. I said that I was against sending troops to fight Russians. There's a big difference between sending troops to Saudi Arabia and sending troops to fight the world's second most powerful world or second top nuclear superpower, right? Do we agree there's a big difference there?
Yes.
I mean, yeah.
And even if I was against sending troops to Saudi Arabia, I would still be far more against sending troops to fight Russians.
Is that a question for me too?
Okay. No, I want to yield to IRI before he
Well, it sounds like Cam, your main concern is saving American lives, right? American soldiers' lives. That's your primary concern, right? So
well, not
I
even
see
just
an
soldiers. I mean, I also don't want a nuclear
American
war.
lives.
Nuclear, which would of course.
Well, I think that Russia has stumbled a bit in their initial invasion into Ukraine. The people of Ukraine have shown that they've got the fight in them, and they're asking for the weapons. And so I see opportunity here to weaken Russia even further on the world stage and perhaps diminish an adversary that has caused us a lot of problems and a lot of grief in the world. So why not take advantage of that and save more lives in the long run?
IRI, even if Ukraine somehow flipped this invasion, turned it around, and started marching into Russia, Russia still got that little red button. That's the problem.
They're not going to. I don't think they're going to push it. Even Putin said to put his nukes on high alert, and the military did nothing. They didn't do anything. So I think that this man is rattling sabers and just bluffing. He's not going to commit suicide. Now I'm not going to bank on that, but I'm just saying that
nothing. I'm not aware of this. I know that he put his nuclear forces on high alert.
He told them to, but our intelligence noted no change at all.
Okay. It was obviously a saber rattling move.
Honest, I don't have a whole lot of. Right? It is very scary. Wait.
My whole point is.
All right, real quick. I don't have a lot of faith in our intelligence community when it comes to intelligence on Russia. They said that Russia was going to launch a false flag attack into Ukraine. Reporters asked them for evidence of that. What is their intelligence? Didn't give them anything. There was never a false flag, to my knowledge, unless somebody else does. They always allege these things. I don't know. Is there any like substantial proof that?
Well, they had an audience of one by putting that information out there, and they've called out every single one of Putin's steps. So they have actually been 100% on this stuff.
I don't know.
They don't need to show the evidence.
Anyway, sure. If they weren't, if the nuclear forces were not on high alert, then that's news to me. But if you're saying it, I'll take it. Sure.
I'm not saying that Ukraine's going to go push into Russia. I think Ukraine just wants to fight for their country. So, but you mentioned that even if Ukraine moved into Russia, I'm saying that there's no reason to use nuclear weapons because Russia could just take quite a bruising. They've already got a bloody nose. Why not give them the fight of their life and show that Russia is not to be that scared of, that we don't have to tiptoe around them anymore. We can save a lot of lives in the future.
Sure, but I still think that we can. Are we talking about? Sorry, the conversation got a little confusing.
We're talking about thousands.
No, wait,
we're talking about thousands of stingers.
Okay, so we're talking about stingers because Brys was talking about troops. You and I are talking about stingers. Okay, sure. I still think that it could be provocative. I would not want to provoke Russia into a war. I also think that just because there's a war doesn't mean America needs to get involved with sending weapons. And I think that sending weapons is getting involved in a war. It's not putting boots on the ground, but it is absolutely getting involved.
Rather than continuing to fight, is there any deal that you guys would recommend that Ukraine make with Putin based on those 3 demands that the guy below me mentioned?
What 3 demands?
I think that's the point of like what he's doing, like shelling and stuff. I think he, like, I don't know. I think he went in there for economic reasons. Obviously, speculative. I'm not, one of Putin's homies, so I don't know. But I think he went in there with the intent to make some economic thing. He was like, "I'll nuke you if you sanction me," or whatever. Threatened a bunch of escalation, and then essentially when things didn't work out, I think he's kind of resorted to just like doing shit indiscriminately, hoping that he has like leverage and be like, give me the Donbass region, and like that'll be the key to peace. And essentially,
Yeah.
Ukraine doesn't want to do that. That's just like, obviously we don't know. That's just like speculative. But
If
so it seems like.
if Ukraine was able to completely repel them out, I would there might come a time where Ukraine has to make some kind of deal, unfortunately. But honestly, like morally, I don't think that there should be any room for negotiating when a authoritarian foreign entity invades you for with no provocation.
But how do
Or
you say that
legitimate
that's no provocation? He's been basically threatening this for over a decade, right? Hasn't he been making these demands? And
Putin has been saying he's going to invade Ukraine, but Ukraine hasn't provoked him. They're not
But
doing
hey,
it.
you cannot say that just not caving to Putin's demands is provocation
Yeah.
enough.
I know, but
It's not
I'm saying,
provocation at all.
I'm saying reality
right now.
Wait,
that's my
sorry.
That's my point, is that the reality is he's invading and he's fighting and he's warring with these people, and yes, they're fighting back. But is there not as if you were America, if you were the American establishment government, would you encourage Ukraine to try to make a deal?
Hey, well, I mean, it
No,
depends.
absolutely.
But hey, listen,
go ahead.
You said morally you
provo-
would want them to keep fighting.
I said that there shouldn't be a scenario where Ukraine has to give something to Russia when they've done nothing wrong. We're talking about provocation. Hake, if you were standing in front of me and I said, Hake, I'm going to punch you in the face, and you just stood there and did nothing but smile, and then I said, I'm going to punch you in the face, and you did nothing but stand there and smile. I said it one more time, and then I punched you in the face. Did you provoke me?
No, but that's not a comparable situation to this situation.
What has Ukraine done? So
it's not Ukraine so much
as if I said I'm going to punch you in the face and you grab me by the shirt, then that is maybe provocation, but I still initiated it. Like, what did Ukraine do? Did they grab Russia by the shirt?
The reality, it's not so much about Ukraine. It's about NATO and all those other things, is it not? The guy below me mentioned those 3 demands that Putin made. I'm asking, is there any concession that you would encourage Ukraine to do? Because morally, you don't want this man's world anymore where people take over stuff, people take over a weaker vessel.
I don't think that just joining, like, obviously Ukraine didn't join NATO, but like I don't think that even if they did, joining NATO is provocation enough for Russia.
The point isn't the provocation. The point is ending the situation. You have to work with people, whether it's moral or not. You have to work with people.
No, I agree with you.
I don't think there's much Ukraine has to offer Russia that's going to satisfy what Russia wants. All I can think of is like Ukraine could offer the Donbass region independence as long as they promise not to join Russia. But I don't think Russia would accept that because it's not going to satisfy them. But it would at least sort of undermine Russia's pretense for invading, right?
Russia did like say before they invaded, just as they had started, or Putin said that he didn't actually plan to occupy. Again, take this with a grain of salt. It's Putin. It probably isn't true. He said that he didn't plan to occupy. Any part of Ukraine, and he did declare a bunch of or recognize a bunch of sovereign nations within Ukraine. But like, so maybe if Ukraine gave the Donbass region independence, maybe I don't know. But again, I would hope that wouldn't have to happen. But
well, what do you think, Hake? After Al Qaeda hit our Twin Towers, should we have negotiated with them?
Al Qaeda is not much more powerful than us. We weren't continuing to take hit casualties after that. So no, of course
I don't
not.
think.
So your position is coming
wait.
from...
Okay, there's 2 people talking, so I'm gonna let Hake finish, but then I want Pixel to follow up with the. Wait, Pixel, was it just clarifying his position?
Well, it was kind of clarifying. So it's okay if you're the most powerful one in the situation. Everybody should just lay down and be like, okay.
Hey,
that's a pretty privileged position to take.
I mean, that's the way of the world. But the point is that they're not the most powerful position right now, because they're not the only. It's not just Ukraine and Russia, the only ones in the world. There's all these outside actors, and I'm asking, is there any deal that you guys would suggest? The guy below me mentioned those demands. I don't remember what exactly they were, but we're meeting somewhere in the middle.
I think
So
I might
the
have.
the entirety of the demands basically sums up is as he wants NATO to not ever consider Ukraine to join, right? And they don't want the prospect of any other country being able to join NATO, right? Because that means the
Yeah, like
expansion of
Sweden and
NATO
Finland.
into the east, right?
And that's
So
not a deal that Ukraine could ever have a part in because they're not a part of NATO.
right, and not just that, but like that is there's no reason or incentive for Ukraine to abide by Putin's demands, right? Like
But I think
why would they do that?
I
Especially
think
when you're proposing like striking up some deal to give them the Donbass region, but we were talking about how essential the natural gas reserves were to the prospect of Ukraine's economy, and those natural gas reserves, a large part of them are right next or right within or next to bordering the Donbass region, right? So control of the Donbass region means control over those natural gas reserves as well.
I probably caused some of the like confusion on this. Hake isn't saying like should Ukraine have to make a deal with Russia. I think he's saying might they have to, right? Like I think there's a pretty big difference. Like I said, morally, I don't think they should have to. I don't think they should be obligated to make a deal with Russia. But they might be put in a situation where they have no other option.
Yeah,
I think it takes
I'm asking what you guys think it would take to end the war and minimize
So
the
you have to
casualties.
understand. I think we all understand your question, but I think you need to understand that a lot of what Putin is proposing is meant to be something that he knows nobody will accept.
Yeah.
Right? A lot of
Right,
this
but
stuff is predicated
you
on
make a deal in
bullshit.
the middle. That's what I'm saying.
Right. So okay, but even if you
talk
like
about
make a
terms
deal
of
in the middle,
surrender, though,
he's
right?
not going to. He's not. Yeah, literally, the only thing that he would accept is like the unquestioned like surrender of the Ukrainian forces. Like literally, all of them throwing down their weapons and giving Ukraine over to Russia. That's all he would accept.
You think he would
Because
take
if
the
he
whole?
went to,
You think he
yeah,
would take the whole
so
country?
I mean, yeah,
He's
he would
attacking
take
the
his.
whole country.
Realistically, I think he'd probably go as like far as the river. How do you
Right.
say that river name? The Dnieper.
So they should just give
That's
him
what
that.
That's what I
If you
heard is all he wants.
demilitarize a country, if you demilitarize an entire country, it just means he's basically free to walk in and do what he wants, install whatever government he wants. That's what demilitarization means. That's what he is doing right now.
And 100% Putin is
So
gonna want to push up to where the river is, maybe even further, right? Because Russia is actually needs that water supply from that river, and
for
it also
Crimea, yeah.
allows them to secure their own rivers and imports of oil up through their own rivers, right? So yeah.
Yeah. So the other thing that I wanted to mention is that there is scenarios where you could go to Putin and be like, okay, we'll look at this kind of like Abkhazia in Armenia, and we'll let them be like an autonomous region or like autonomous part of Ukraine or whatever. Like Ukraine could go to him and be like, okay, here are our concessions, leave us alone. And he would probably still be like, no, that's not good enough, and come up with some bullshit like the denazification or the NATO shit. And he'll just pivot. He'll consistently pivot from one thing and just maintain the conflict as it is, because that's what he wants. Like he wants the conflict. And honestly, like you also have to consider like there are like general strategies in Russia or sorry, like Russian military of like what they call like hybrid warfare, where they keep a region specifically destabilized and they are the sole like stabilizing force in the region. And I think if you consider all this stuff, it is extremely unlikely that whatever Ukraine went to Russia with, that he'd ever like accept anything.
And I'm not talking about just Ukraine making a deal. I'm talking about NATO too, since NATO is supposedly a concern.
So it's not actually.
What I'm getting from you guys is that you want them to keep fighting and keep dying.
No, I don't want to keep nobody wants them. I don't think anybody here would want Ukraine to keep on fighting.
I mean, that's what you think has to happen.
No. Hang on, one second. So, I think what is the real situation is that when you're talking about the NATO thing, a ton of efforts have been made to bring Russia towards like the global economy and just like global politics. Like we had we specifically amended NATO to make like the NATO Russia Council or something, and we've done a ton of efforts to like include them in like the global markets and like economy. And he's been consistently adversarial. And then 2014, shit hit the fan, but like 2008, 2009, the whole Georgia stuff wasn't really fully about NATO either. So he's making these moves regardless of the whole NATO thing. He just uses that idea of like NATO and the NATO encroachment as like a buffer, as like a shield, as like a, well, like you can't talk shit about me because NATO.
Right, but NATO has power that Ukraine doesn't. That's why I'm saying involving NATO in these talks.
I'm sorry. Like, can you explain that a bit more? Because I don't really get the relevance.
Like you're saying that you don't see a way out other than them continuing to fight.
I mean, in this sense, yes. Like, this is something that so it's like you've started the fight, right? So you're not really gonna. There's a small chance of like the economic sanctions bringing Russia to a point where they do become amenable to some kind of diplomatic means. I don't know. I could absolutely be wrong. I could have no fucking idea what I'm talking about. There could be situations where Russia does come to the table, but I think right now, as it stands, they have no interest in sitting down at the table.
Well, that
I
is
truly
bold.
There is only one party in this situation right now who wants to be at war, and it is Russia. NATO, Ukraine, they don't want to be at war at all, but it takes two parties to make peace. And with Putin's lack of compromise in any of these situations and his consistent kind of like soft invasions of like Crimea, Georgia, like NATO are not just going to let it keep happening. Not when they have allies like Estonia in a near similar position. Like it's just not a thing that's going to happen.
All right.
Okay, so I think we're gonna wrap up that topic. I do want to say to Hake that he was talking about like the idea of what is something that Ukraine could propose or like offer, and I was thinking about this the other day, and I came to a conclusion that if I think Zelensky went to I think Lavrov, who is the Russian foreign minister, and said, hey, we could of course come to the table and offer for the removal of Russian troops the code for Surfshark VPN DBTV, which gives you the first 3 months free and 3 months afterwards with 82% off, then possibly we could see peace in Europe. I think that the offering of that deal could bring peace to the region, and I think Hake would agree with me.
Nice.
Thank you very much.
Let's do it.
Awesome. So we're gonna go on to the next topic, and the next topic of the day is actually, it's going to be probably a bigger topic. That's why I only have two, and that's actually Biden's State of the Union, because Biden talked about a lot of things in the State of the Union. So I'm going to ask you guys the general question of what you thought of it. You could give your general thoughts, say anything specific, and then as the conversation goes on, I'll bring up specific things in this speech and ask your guys' thoughts on it, okay? So I hope everybody here at least watched some of Biden's State of the Union, and I will ask you all what you thought of it. I'm going to throw it first over to Carter.
Yeah, I thought it was
Oh, I should have done outros for the last segment, shouldn't have I? Probably. Do you guys want outros?
Don't bother. Nobody has anything to say.
Got it. Okay, then we'll just go straight into intros then. Okay.
Wait, oh no, it's okay.
Yeah, I think the State of the Union was just kind of boring. He only said like one thing that really stuck out was like the defund the police shit, and like that was pretty much it.
Okay, I'm gonna throw it over to Cam.
Oh, my mic was already unmuted. Yeah, so as far as a State of the Union with President Biden, I didn't think it went that terrible. I guess I probably could have expected it to be a lot worse. He said he was going to end cancer, which I thought was kind of interesting. He said that capitalism without competition is exploitation and is not capitalism, which I agree with. But unfortunately, I think the government a lot of times stunts that competition. He said that he created the most jobs in 1 year than ever before in history, which I think is in large part due to lockdowns ending. Said he was going to, try to build back better America or whatever. We're gonna start producing things in America, which of course I support, but probably an empty promise. I don't know. Said that asked if the deer are wearing Kevlar vests. Completely missed the point of the Second Amendment, which isn't for hunting. Anyway, yeah, I guess that can be my intro.
Yeah, I'm gonna throw it over to our Canadian fellow.
All right. a lot of the times on these different panels, I often say Americans are dumb, or that they're really brain dead, or other ways of saying that. But I just want to say that I think in a lot of the points in this speech, Biden was pretty based, especially the whole like funding the police. And I agree that the whole like defund the police is a pretty terrible idea. I think a number of different points stand out as being pretty base, but the main thing as a Canadian above, being the hat, the cooler older brother, or sorry, the younger brother rather. As long as they keep making us rich in Canada and like keeping us the way we are, I'm happy.
Wonderful. Now we're going to throw it over to IRI.
Yeah, I mean, this is Biden's biggest speech before the midterms. A lot of people haven't seen anything of him. A lot of normies will tune in to stuff like this. So, I thought he gave a pretty strong speech. I was kind of not expecting too much since I've been watching him a lot lately, and I didn't know what he could say any different. But I think he gave a rousing speech portion about Ukraine and a lot of standing ovations, and showed that America's back on the world stage and leading. And we really have. I mean, we've helped bring our allies even closer together and spoken as one voice, even getting Germany to invest money in defense. But my favorite part was stealing the GOP's talking points about funding the police, as my fellow panelists have mentioned here, because none of us stand for defunding the police. And unfortunately, Americans are too dumb for any nuance. So you can't be like, yeah, but we don't really mean defund the police. We mean other services and maybe take away some money. So no, of course we stand for funding the police on the left. So we should just say it. And he also said, secure the border. Yes, of course we stand for securing the border. We just think a wall is totally useless. Nobody's sneaking into America in the middle of the desert where there's no wall. So we stand for these things, and we need to be upfront about them. And he got a rousing, a standing ovation from a lot of people in that chamber, including GOP members. So I think a lot of Americans finally got it in their little skulls that, hey, we don't stand for these ridiculous things that the right has been saying. So I thought it went pretty well.
Okay, now I'm going to throw it for the exact opposite opinion. Hake.
Biden's so-called State of the Union address was phony. We are hardly a union. We're probably the most divided that we've been in anybody's lifetime here. And Biden has been a part of that for the decades that he's been in office throughout our lifetimes. He said he addressed nothing really important. He gave lip service to law enforcement, which he's done. He's acted pro law and order whenever it's politically expedient. And the same thing with securing the border. They've been talking about that for decades. And there are people crossing the border illegally through the open areas. He can barely speak anymore. His mind is half gone. His heart is evil. And he's never stood for anything good that I'm aware of. He was always for dividing people, feeding. Even under Obama, when he was VP, he was saying the Republicans want to put y'all back in chains in the black churches. He supported everything wrong. He pretended that he cared about black so-called poverty. They live better than kings right now, and they're only suffering from their own immorality, which is something that he supports: the destruction of the family and the blaming and hating of white people and cops, which he supported. He talked about his son dying and trying to appeal to the women's emotions and stuff. He always like every other speech, he's talking about his son dying. My son Bo, feel sorry for me, feel emotional, support me. And he's so morbid and phony emotional. He talks about people dying of the the COVID-19 or whatever. And we can bring down the number of cancer deaths. All he ever does is promote hatred, which we all know that anger feeds the destruction of one's own body. And he's talked about to the unvaccinated, our patience is wearing thin. And now all of a sudden he wants to act like he's this uniter. It's phony. He doesn't have patience and he doesn't have love. What a mess.
Okay, I'm going to throw it over to Pixel.
Well, look, I watched the entire thing at 1.25 speed because it was slow. I find looking in at American patriotism that comes around every State of the Union pretty cringe. I find the standing ovations for every bit of lip service, pretty cringe. I it's an awkward one for me because I think a lot of the things that Joe Biden said are not necessarily bad things for America. I think they are far better things for America than things were under someone like Trump. But it's been so long now watching the US say these things, State of the Union after State of the Union, watching polls rise in favor of this kind of nationalist, patriotist, warmongering kind of style of pride that exists within America. And I sit and I am uncomfortable the whole time because it feels performative. And my hottest take on the situation is that the real star of the State of the Union speech was Nancy Pelosi standing up and sitting down as many times as she fucking did. Like, man, it was leg day for everyone in that room, and that room is not young. So, yeah, that's kind of my general take on that.
We're gonna throw it over to Mindwaves.
Yeah, I just want to say that I didn't watch it, but I did see a lot of the highlights, and I have a lot of opinions on a lot of what we're talking about. So just to be upfront. I also was gonna iterate something that Pixel said, is that I personally find State of the Union's cringe, but I think what we also need to realize is that nobody gives a fuck how cringe we think it is. This is actually a very good opportunity, the State of the Union, for a president to basically have a chance to gain favorability with people in the middle, especially like moderates or people that are undecided, especially going into another election, right? So I think that these moments are very important, and what you choose to talk about and the way you talk about certain issues is very vital. And I think that Biden was very based in a lot of what he said. I liked how a lot of people said on here the fund the police take was very base. I think that this defund the police shit is something that you only see from terminally online people on Twitter, and there's no favorability for any such policy in the real world. I think that, the whole Buy America shit was also base. It also appeals to moderates. I think that that's really, really good. Yeah, I don't know. We also saw a spike in favorability or popularity with Biden after the State of the Union, and it's hard to say how much of that is the Ukraine situation and the U.S. involvement in that, and how much of that is the State of the Union. But yeah.
Okay, and lastly, last username.
I thought this was easily the best State of the Union I've ever seen. Finally declared war in Canada. We've had it coming because all that inflation, just like Joe Biden said. And I think, war is the only solution. So I'm glad about that. $100 an hour minimum wage to fight the inflation. That should work. It makes sense economically. Good. I loved hearing that. The halftime show was great. The coronavirus dancers, like dancing around dressed as coronaviruses, and then the dancers dressed as syringes, like jabbing them. I thought that was just really charming. And it turned the pandemic into like a fun thing. It was very tasteful. So I like that. And the cage match with Corn Pop at the end. That was totally thrilling. I don't know how they found that guy. So yeah, like this State of the Union had everything. I'm going to watch it again tonight, make some popcorn. 5 stars.
Wonderful. Okay, so if there's anything anyone wants to respond to, I also have a list of questions if nobody has anything initially I can throw out there. Does anybody have anything they want to respond to?
Yeah, sure. So IRI and IRI, you said that like people don't really want to defund the police. Maybe you don't. And Mindwaves, you said that it was mostly just insane people on Twitter.
Yep.
Sure, it is. A lot of it is like just people like you and I, except dumber and on Twitter. However, we do have actual lawmakers that are advocating for these things. Marcia Fudge, who is Biden's director of urban development or whatever. Then you've got Ilhan Omar, who not only wants to defund the police literally, but also wants to completely disband the police. She wants to completely get rid of the police. You've got AOC, who wants to defund the police, Cori Bush, et cetera, right? The list goes on. It's a very small minority of lawmakers. Mm-hmm. It's not a lot of them, but they're there and they're in our government.
Yeah, who cares though, right? This is representative of like literally nobody in the population though, right? Like when you look at how this sort of policy polls with Americans, it's not favorable at all. Which means which means the reality is that it's just not politically like plausible, right? That we're ever going to be defunding the police, especially at the international level, right? No.
Didn't they literally try to do that?
Or at the national level, just to be clear.
Sure, at the national level maybe, but the problem is that we literally have lawmakers and governors and mayors who support this stuff that can actually make it happen. That's the problem. It doesn't matter if it's reflective of everybody in the country. The problem is that the people who can execute these things are in power. That's the problem.
It has happened on some level.
No, where has it happened?
They've happened a little bit in Minneapolis.
There are some departments that did receive cuts, and I think that they are being refunded because it has shown not to work. If anything, police departments in the United States need funding to solve a lot of the problems that we have with policing.
But that none of this matters because you guys all agree, right? Look, I mean, we all agree that it's not a good idea to defund the police.
Defunding the police though is a shift. It's a shift in monetary spending. I feel like everyone in America gets. Yeah, I know, but everybody gets it wrong.
We're
too dumb.
Everybody
gets it fucking wrong.
But it doesn't matter.
Slogan then. Like,
okay. Everybody, calm down, please. Calm down for a second. Okay, Ham, you speak, and then I saw Hake wanted to say something, so I want to make sure he gets time to speak.
So first of all, I think Pixel just spelled it right out. Think of a better name. And the problem is that some of the people, like the ones that I just mentioned that want to defund the police, actually do want to defund the police, and they want to take funding away, not allocate it to other places within the police departments, right? That's the problem. And if the people who want to take funding from certain places in police departments and put them in other, like training or whatever, like maybe take them away from equipment and put it in training, whatever, then maybe you shouldn't bandwagon with the defund the police people. Think of a better messaging.
Nobody is. That's the reason why Biden's out there saying we don't stand for that.
Yeah, nobody here is, but people certainly are.
Yes, okay, but also so Marjorie Taylor Greene spoke at Nick Fuentes' conference, where he supports white nationalism, and does that mean the Republican Party supports white nationalism?
I never said the Democrat Party supports defunding. Biden has.
I know, but you said because there's a few fringe members who support something, therefore we all support it.
No, I said that you shouldn't hop on that bandwagon. I said that I think it's a problem that lawmakers have these positions. I never said that it's reflective of the entire Democratic Party.
Just to be upfront, I think go ahead.
Refinish. I think that Biden has been incredibly consistent on this issue. You can find videos of him from before he was president saying that he doesn't want to defund the police. He was on the Trevor Noah show like a year ago, and he said almost the exact same thing that he said in his State of the Union the other day. Right. I think he's been incredibly consistent. It's not reflective of the Democrat Party. There was something else I wanted to say, but I don't remember.
Yeah, I think that IRA and me would also agree that we don't agree with those representatives and those positions, right? And I don't think that those I just don't think that there's very much concern because it's not representative of any sort of political will towards actually achieving this policy in the Democratic Party. I don't think that. Where's the concern? I don't care if there's a couple crazies in advocating for this policy.
Sure, and I think I remembered what I wanted to say. IRA, you the Marjorie Taylor Greene card at me. I think she's a moron. I'm not afraid to say it. I think she's an idiot, and I don't think that she's reflective of most Republicans. Just like maybe Ilhan Omar isn't reflective of most Democrats. Sure,
right.
There was nothing.
I think go ahead, Hake. Sorry.
Just a side note. There was nothing wrong with AFPAC. It was an excellent conference, and it was beautiful.
I'm not even familiar, so I'm
beautiful.
Yeah, and Marjorie Greene, she was a queen there. It was nice.
Hell yeah, brother.
There has been an attack on the cops, and they've been using black victimhood as the purported reason for this attack, and they've it's been very unfair what they've done. The Black Lives Matter riots and false accusations and jump into conclusions by politicians, the mainstream media, the local people. The local leadership has been doing defunding of cops as we've gone over.
Where?
In I think Los Angeles and Minneapolis. The guy below me
Minneapolis
Mindwaves.
did not get rid of theirs, and New York City actually added money to their budget. So I'd have
There
to see
has
some
been
concrete examples of police departments being defunded.
okay. There have been cases. I'm surprised that you haven't heard about it, but the cops have been retiring early like crazy. They've been in many cases they've been fired for not wanting to get the vaccinations, and murders have gone up in some cases. I think record levels. So this attack has been actually hurting the Black community, which is in some cases the most dangerous of the communities for the Black lives that they pretend to care about. And Dr. John R. Lott of Crime Prevention Research, he did a study he found through like looking at the data that more cops on the scene, and it's common sense, means less likelihood of having to use deadly force or a crazy situation. It's safer for the criminals and suspects to have more cops on the scene, not fewer. But we have the opposite. We have fewer cops now and not more.
You know,
Well, I
my
think
favorite police. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say a lot of officers are moving. It's not because their
my
departments
favorite
are
thing
being
is
defunded. It's because they just are treated better in other
They're
states.
quitting. Yeah.
Yeah, I like how cops how many dogs do they shoot a day? It was crazy. I was reading about it the other day. But yeah, I don't. I think if we keep, we should probably defund them because I like dogs and stuff. So I think we should
Look,
reallocate that.
I just miss the old messaging from the Democratic or from like progressives where it was all about like demilitarizing the police, right? Or stuff like that. I think that this mantra of like defund is just totally misguided. I think that we definitely need to look at like better oversight or whatever. But I think that yeah, I don't know. This whole movement's just really misguided.
I reckon you should swap it. Yeah, I reckon make it refund the police, right?
Yeah.
Refund
still
and
won't
then
work.
shift it.
No,
Like
it's
it's still
garbage.
catchy. It's
How about
still
reform?
catchy.
What
Just
we
move it around.
we ran on reform the
Do
police for
Americans
forever.
even know what reform
Yes.
means? At
Oh
least
my
they know
God,
what a refund
no.
is.
Jesus.
What-
Okay.
Yeah, refund. When you go to the store and refund something, is that what we're doing with the police? No, that doesn't make any
Yeah.
sense, and that's not a very good political message, and it doesn't stand for anything, right? Like
I think we should stop with just like American dumb card. Okay. I think what's happening here is
No.
horrible. 2-word messaging on both sides is literally just feeding the divide, right? It's literally just terrible 2-word slogans on both sides that don't actually mean what the people who support them are intending to
I can
convey.
agree with that. I can agree with that.
It's horrible.
Yeah,
Kind
chauvinism
of like
is a pretty
make
big
America
problem,
great again.
for sure. yeah, exactly.
Build the
But
wall.
Well, you know,
but that's
I
what
got
I
a
mean.
crazy
Like,
idea. You know, in the spirit,
even if Americans are not like, I'm not saying that all Americans are dumb, right? But the way that American rhetoric works on both sides of the political aisle is that the only way the message gets across is if these simple slogans. Look at the Make America Great Again and how that worked and how that resonated with a majority, or at one point, a majority of the population.
I'm trying to think
right?
of an example of this on
Never a majority.
I'm trying to think of an
Just a
example
slogan.
of this on the
I
right.
know it was, yeah.
I'm trying to think of an example of this on the right. I'm not talking about stuff like Make America Build the Wall. I'm talking about when people say slogans that don't actually mean what they're intending to convey, like defund the police. And I'm not talking about anybody on this panel. I'm talking about morons on Twitter who say defund the police or have it in their Twitter bios, and then you confront them about it, and they're like, "Well, I don't actually want to defund the police. I just want to reallocate resources." And I'm like, "Okay, then don't say defund the police then, because you're literally just feeding this issue, right?" I'm trying to think of something like this on the right. I know they exist. I just can't think of one off the top of my head. If
I would say that pro-life is one.
Yeah, exactly. That's what that's what the left thinks.
I don't think it matters what slogan, by the way. I just want to say, because anything the left comes up with, they do bad. We say Black Lives Matter, people go, "Oh, but what about everyone else?" It's like, well, that's not what it's saying, right? It literally doesn't matter. Left could be like the sky is blue, and people will be like, "Oh, no, it's actually more of like a turquoise." I don't know what you're talking about.
As somebody who doesn't support abortion, I think that anti-abortion would be a much better way of phrasing that. Totally agree. But I don't think anybody really is like, I mean, I guess it does like create an opening for a straw man. But
I'm pretty sure everybody knows that defund the police means that they want social workers. They want the money to go over towards social workers and less funding of police for most,
No.
but there are some who want to abolish the police.
I don't think it has any specific meaning.
I think that there's one way that you
I
can.
think
There's a new direction. Sorry, last username. You might actually like this direction. You know, I feel like so Amazon, they pretty much solved the logistical issues in America and making everybody get everything really, really fast. What if you just like divide up some of the police responsibilities to Amazon, privatize your police? What could possibly go wrong?
Well, right. That's
what
what
Obama wanted to do.
I'm the only one here who
Wait.
literally wants to defund the police completely.
No, I'm the same.
But that's a different topic. What that slogan really means, it doesn't mean anything. I think it's deliberately, intentionally designed to not mean anything, so that whoever's using it can then make up whatever they want. And if they're criticized over it, they can say it means one thing. When they're with people who agree with them, they can say it means another thing. Right? It's just something that sounds good that you can sort of project whatever you happen to believe on, and that's what makes it such a popular phrase. Is right? It's flexible. It's adaptable to whoever wants to say it.
Because
right?
people,
It's a way of sort of bringing people together on some meaningless phrase instead of actual ideas, right?
Because people always say that, like, oh, well, we're not saying actually take funding away from the police. Well, then why say defund it, right? If you're going to say it's all about investing in the communities, investing in social workers, etc., then let's just do that.
Yeah, I'm gonna throw it over to Hake.
Before we reform the police, and I suppose that there are some reforms that could take place, but long before we need to do that is we need to reform the criminal communities, the crime-ridden communities, return to families and fathers, and stop the undermining and the boiling and the feeding of false anger and false resentment towards police. Put some responsibility back on the people who are getting themselves in these crazy situations, rather than hyping them up as victims and martyrs like the Black Lives Matter supporters, including the mainstream media and the phony politicians, have been doing.
And let me guess, we do that through the church.
Well, reform the blacks and the others and everybody, really. Reform everybody, maybe partly through the church, yeah. But
you think the whites need to reform as well?
For sure. That's why I said
whites be acting up.
That's why I said everybody, because
defund the criminals, so there won't be any crime, right?
That would help. Defund the single mothers, because they're the ones disproportionate.
What
single
about
mothers
the
are
poor
disproportionately
white people,
raising.
though, Hake? What about the poor white people?
What about them?
Well, there's a lot of poor white people in America.
They're not the ones. Them too. Reform them too. Have them be responsible. We need to defund the single mothers because they're disproportionately raising these criminal people.
That's an interesting one. How do single mothers come about? Hake, how do they come about?
When you look at the prisons, many of those people, if not probably most of the violent felons, are children who were children who were not raised with their fathers, at least not strong fathers.
Because the fathers left.
It takes two to tango. You need to not be pandering and kissing up to women and enabling them to drive away the father. You have to put responsibility back on both, not just on the father. Yes, on the father, but also on the females.
The females.
The mothers.
The femoids.
Women's do be acting up. That's true.
Yep.
Let's just give all the men a vasectomy until they prove they're responsible enough, hey?
The women are the ones passing down the hatred to the children. It's not the fathers. The fathers are not around to pass the hatred down to the children. That's why they act out. We all know this.
Hey, Dylan, what do you think about that?
Mindwaves, it's your job to push back on it.
He passed it to Hayes. He knew what he was getting into.
Yeah.
Yes, reform all people, including the whites.
All right. So, wait, are you saying that we don't need to focus on issues with policing and instead need to focus on the issues of like what culture that creates crime? Is this the argument? Just to be clear.
Yeah. Before you deal with the police, because before you deal with the police, you deal with the criminals, because these, in almost every case that Black Lives Matter has highlighted,
they deal with criminals.
It has been resisting arrest, crazy out of control behavior, fleeing the scene, and all that stuff. You have to put responsibility back on the people.
Okay, so I would agree with you that in a lot of these that they point out the shooting was justified, but the things you just listed are not justifications for
Yeah,
fleeing
well,
the scene of a
I'm more
crime.
interested in having the conversation of like, look, hey, if you actually
when you
believe this,
resist arrest, you escalate the situation and put yourself at risk.
I don't think that matters with the conversation though. Like, right? If you think that is the case, then like why is it that it has to be one or the other, right? You're creating this dichotomy of like, even if I accept, okay, there's this cultural problem and we can tackle that issue later because I definitely have an issue with that talking point. But like, why can't we focus on the issues of policing? I think you would agree that there are issues that exist within police departments, right, in the United States.
As society gets more corrupt, that includes the individuals who become cops. Yes.
Right. So you would agree that like we probably need to focus on better oversight. It's still there are still a lot of police departments that need funding for like body cams or retraining officers, etc. Right. Why is it why do you focus so much on culture when we can also just focus on policing and those issues that exist internally within those departments?
Because policing is not the primary problem facing the Black community or most other people. There are cases in which people's rights are violated, but that's not a main issue for the Black community or anyone else.
Oh, well, I think that the
does it
Black
have to be the
community would
primary
disagree with
problem
you, though,
to talk
right?
about?
Like,
I don't
I think
understand.
that if you look at the Black community, they definitely do believe that there is an issue with policing, and I think we could both, like we already said, agree that there is an issue with policing. So I think that there is some truth in that, especially when it comes to how policing disproportionately affects Black communities, or even just poor communities in general, right?
Because their crime is out of control. And then they're also fed this hatred. They're also fed this unjustified hatred towards police.
Even if we fix the
reform them
cultural
first.
problems, those problems within the police departments and how they're ran still exist, right?
Do you believe they get what's coming to them because they're like committing these crimes that they get what they deserve? Or,
No,
like,
it's not so much
like
the
them
crimes
home to
that
roost?
it's not so much the crimes that they get what's coming to them, but sometimes they do put themselves in a situation in which they do get themselves killed. Like for example, Walter Scott, who got shot in the back by Officer Slager. Had he not run...
Okay, can I just say also, once we finish this interaction, we got to bring it back to the speech, because we're now talking about a completely separate issue, and we do need to get back to the speech.
Yeah, I want to talk about free Wi-Fi for all Americans.
Daniel?
I want to talk about how women are acting up.
Same.
That was
did you want to finish
right?
that? Did you want to finish that point, Hake, or do you want to just go back to the speech?
Just basically that Biden is not focusing on the real, actual issues that are affecting the Black community or the or anyone else really. He's pretending that he's pretending to help, but it's not helping.
I don't know how you got there, but I agree at the end of that.
Okay, so I'm going to talk about.
I have no idea how you got there, but yeah,
I'm going to talk about a few things here. The first thing I want to talk about is that Biden had a lot of stuff to talk about his domestic agenda. Specifically, he renewed his call for expanding childcare, elder care, pre-kindergarten education, and stuff of that sort, including in climate change initiatives and prescription drugs, cars, blah, 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 blah. You all heard the section, I assume, on the domestic policy. What did you guys think about that section on domestic policy?
I thought I think it was pretty good. I actually saw a few. I even added things on top of that, like the Pell Grants thing. I was really interested by the idea of this, the Paycheck Fairness Act. I think that was another really good like domestic thing that he seems to be pushing. Because I think that's a pretty good contentious subject. You know, like paid, but like making like federally. I don't know if it's federally mandated or like federally legislated, a paid leave and setting like the minimum wage to like $15 an hour. Was that what it was?
He did mention $15 minimum wage. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's interesting to see Biden be one of the most consistently be one of the most pro-union, pro-worker presidents of all U.S. history, right? Like, I think that you brought up the Paycheck Fairness Act. The ability for workers to be able to disclose salary information in the workplace is essential to being able to negotiate wages. So I think that's
a really funny thing. Yeah, because isn't it like under American law, you are allowed to talk about your wages with your peers and like your coworkers, but there's like this like culture fostered of not being able to talk about these things, not being able to discuss Like, yeah, and
yeah, it's also the culture of policy over law, right? Like a lot of businesses just say it's their policy, even though it's not rooted in anything, because no one will challenge them.
yeah, yeah. Everyone's like you are at the behest of your employer because if you say something like against the policy, if it's written in a particular way, they could theoretically, or even just like even if you don't have it written explicitly in the policy, people like lay people, or not lay people. I guess that's kind of a bad way to say it. Somebody could still have the fear of being let go for violating the policy.
Honestly, Biden's a much more effective socialist than Bernie ever was. I'll just throw that out there.
True.
I actually think that
True.
Biden's domestic policy part of the speech was the most based part. I don't usually qualify my statements, but my dad's an international educator, and the studies behind funding education showed that increasing access to childcare and accessibility of childcare is one of the best things you can do for equality in a society, improvements in education, because when you set kids up in a way where they're socialized, where they're community raised, it sets them up way better for any sort of schooling system. So yeah, I actually think that it's a really good focus for a domestic agenda.
Yeah, you guys desperately need that improvement. Oh, not you guys, but Americans. Americans desperately need that improvement in education system.
I don't think it's a good idea for the government to become the parents of the children. I think we need to get back to where women are able to stay home and raise their children, where they aren't forced under this messed up economy to have to go to work. Because the more women that are working, the more they're going to have to go to work because everybody else is able to afford more. And we've just set up a bad situation, doubling the workforce like that, and it's lowered wages, and it's just been. Yes, it's created supposedly more wealth, but in my mind, that's ill-gotten gain. That's been selfishness on the part of the women trying to play the man and act like she's a man, can do everything that a man does, and they're worse off for it. They're more depressed today than they were decades back. The children are being lost from the parents. They're being brainwashed with all of this LGBT agenda and the radical racism agenda in the schools.
Let's talk about one thing at a time, mate. There's a lot
I'm just saying those are the effects of the government becoming the parent rather than the mother and father acting like a normal mother and father.
The government is not becoming the parent, though, right? We were talking about women being able to decide futures for themselves, careers for themselves, being able to enter the workplace just like any man would. I think in the United States, where I think you, of all people, should be for people's freedom to choose, especially to determine their own careers and futures for themselves. You should absolutely support women who want to enter the workplace, who want to go and get an education, right? If that means leaving a child with a babysitter, if that means leaving a child in daycare while both parents are able to work or pursue careers, then so be it, right? I don't think that there's any proof that that has any sort of negative effect on children in the long run or at all, right? And if you're concerned about single parents, right, we should talk about other issues that affect poor communities than this, right? That this is not the issue.
No, I'm not talking just about single parents. I'm talking about where both parents are so-called married and they're both working because the woman has this ego to try to go.
Yeah,
do
how
this
dare
work.
a woman want to work?
And you said
right?
that's about freedom. That's not freedom. That's dependency because they're begging for this free stuff, this free childcare and all that stuff.
I think
and
that
it's worse for the children.
Financial independence is something that you highly undervalue, right? I think that a woman and their ability to be in a relationship and equally contribute in a household is very empowering, and I think it's very brave of you to try to speak for women and what they want when you look at what women want and what they're actually in favor of, what they actually like when it comes to polling, they want the ability to compete with men in the workplace, right? This is the future that women want, right? It doesn't nobody gives a fuck what you or conservatives that just want women to be in the kitchen care.
Listen,
but they don't know what they want.
I have a question. Hank, wouldn't you rather women? Wouldn't you rather women go to work and like earn a wage than have to rely on the government to get like money?
Yeah, but
Oh, why are women?
we're talking
Honestly,
about
why?
married couples.
But wait,
Most
okay.
couples, both parents are working today because we have this.
Yeah, but you're like arguing against women. You're arguing against women receiving like subsidies from the government and arguing against them working at the same time.
Right. Because
So,
all
like,
of these
what do you
subsidies
want
is
them to
just
do?
increasing all of these subsidies, this minimum wage, because you get rid of minimum wage, it's
they should
only
just die?
increasing the cost of living.
I guess I'm
And women don't
Hey,
know
but
what they
you
want.
don't really have an option.
Hey,
though.
wait, I
You
wanna
can
hear-
either
Wait.
there's two ways.
I wanted to hear the end of the statement, Hake. You're saying something about women don't know what they want?
They don't know, just because it's kind of like Mindwave saying, oh, the black community believes there's a problem with policing because they're told to that. They're gullible in this way. They're brainwashed with all of this propaganda over the decades.
Why are you not? Why are you not, Hake?
Because I'm not.
Like, why are you the one who's got it all figured out, Hake? How are you so lucky that you're the one who's got it figured out, and all these other people are gullible stooges?
And who tricks women into wanting to work?
Wait. We gotta let him answer one question at a time.
So, which question do you want me to answer?
Why are you so gifted and you get it, but all these other fools can't? Why you? Why are you so special?
Well, for one, most black people are raised with this brainwashing about racism, and
how can you speak on behalf of black people, though? You're not black, so how can you speak on behalf?
I'm not speaking on behalf of them.
What do you mean observe? You've never walked a moment in a black person's shoes. You've never walked a moment in a black person's shoes. That's like me saying I could speak of what a dog's life is like. Are you kidding me? I just scratch my ass and I eat dog food. Come on, man.
We all know that they're brainwashed with this racism thing, and their pastors, their teachers,
their
parents.
You have.
I don't know that.
Have you ever heard them talk? Heard them talk?
Oh, come on, Ira. That's not fair.
I'm a woman, right?
Yes.
Okay. Hello,
believe so,
hi.
yes.
Yeah. So if I don't know what I want, what is it exactly that I should want, according to you, the expert in this situation?
Well, clearly, it's a known fact that women are more depressed today, even with all this so-called women's empowerment, than they were decades ago.
Everyone
when they lived their lives as in their proper role.
Yeah, you know what, Hake, I think you're onto something, because I think the government really shouldn't upset that natural order, you know? Men should be dominant, they should be the breadwinners, women should be
Correct.
You can't even follow through with the defense, honestly.
So, Pixel, you were responding to Hake, I believe?
I was, yeah. So it's very interesting that you think that when women are given the opportunity to participate in society as equals, you know, like vote, have a bank account, make money, so that they are not, you know, at the hands of men, which historically has been actually quite detrimental to women. So I'm honestly just curious as to where you get this research that the past for women was better than it is today, because things are improving for women rapidly. And I think that's one of the hardest things. I think you would agree with me that it is a very difficult thing for us all to navigate right now, because the relationship between men and women is changing rapidly. And some men absolutely don't know what to do with that. And there are people who think like you, that think that we should go back in time and try and put everything back together the way that it was. Like, you do realize that the way that things were is not necessarily good for women, and it wasn't necessarily good for men. Like, how can you not understand that maybe changing towards a future where equality is something where men can choose to stay home and be the fathers, the best fathers that they can be? How do you know that that is not a better thing?
Well, you're making the claim that they were worse off before and they were more miserable before, but the reality is they are more miserable today. They are more mentally ill today. We have a society where people are just spoiled, and women being in positions of power, you just know naturally that it just doesn't look right.
That is not unique to women, right? Yeah. That is true of everybody. Everybody,
but it's distinctly with women.
This is the problem with what you're arguing. So you seem to be against welfare in general, correct?
Against what?
Okay, would you be against women staying home and collecting welfare from the government?
Yes.
Okay, so there seems to be two options. I'm generally against welfare in that way as well, but there seems to be two options here. The woman can either stay home and collect welfare, or she can go out and get a job. Which would you rather?
She can get married and stay married to the husband and not drive him away.
But a single income isn't always enough to support a child. So if the
that's because of the setup. That's because of the setup that by all of these other things. The minimum wage and all these other things have made it so that women working has caused it so that women kind of have to work. That's what my point is being.
Hake, are you married, Hake?
No, not at this
Didn't
point.
think so.
I wonder why.
What do you mean by that?
Come on, bro. You're out here giving advice. You're not even married,
I'm just
living
saying,
the life,
it's very
bro.
hard. It's very hard to find a woman that wants to be oppressed every day. So, there you go.
That's not oppression. Give me a break. They're happier that way when they're in their natural
I want to understand
role.
why.
Yeah,
why would
they're
more
happier
women
when
wait,
only allowed to do the things that you allow them to do. I'm sure.
Mindwaves. Okay, there's too many people talking at the same time. Okay, I can't even hear anybody. I'm gonna throw it over to last username because last username is very polite.
Okay, Hake, I have a sincere question for you. I don't want to make fun of you like all these other jerks, but I want to know, why is it that more women? You think that more women working has caused the situation where they have to work?
It has contributed
like the economy
to that.
somehow structured badly that forces them to work. But so which way is it? Which causes what?
They both cause each other. I mean, when you think about it, when you double the workforce by having effectively, just ballpark, by more women working, then you're having more income, more production, and all of that. More people, couples can afford more and all of that stuff. But now costs go up because they can afford more, and now that makes it harder for the people.
Why would costs go up?
Well, this is the failure of men.
Because they can afford more, so the costs go up.
But they're producing more too.
This is basic economics. The costs go up because you can afford more.
They should have done a better job.
Stop, everybody, stop. There's too many people talking at once. I had Carter talking, I had Pixel talking, MindWaves talking, last username talking, I had the Canadian talking, I had multiple people talking at the same time. Okay, there's a lot of people talking at the same time. So who wants to talk? Raise your hand. I'm just gonna do it based off that. Okay. I'm gonna go to Canadian and then the other Canadian.
Thank you. Also, did you guys notice that we're kind of wearing the
Can I finish my answer though?
Shirt?
Oh, sure. You can finish your answer.
Yeah, because the last part that I didn't get to was when most people are doing this two income household thing. By now it's to the point where it's harder for a person to do just a one income, or a couple to do a one income household. So that's you've set up society to where it's harder for the people to want to do it the right way, because everybody's doing it the wrong way.
Can I respond to that?
Men should have worked harder then, shouldn't they?
My main thing is I just wanted to get a real quick thing in, the correction. Hey, you said that, I think you said, correct me if I'm wrong, you said that their income goes up or the amount of money that they have goes up and the prices go up?
Yes.
That's not how it works.
It is.
No, hang on. No, I'm going to teach you something about economics. It's called the income effect. When a household's income goes up, their consumption of goods changes, and you don't have a specific type of good that they consume from the increase in income, but they do change and increase their consumption of goods in general. So it doesn't mean that what happens is not a effect on the price.
It is affecting prices though. Because they're buying more, there's more demand. There's more money to be spent.
But there's more supply too, because the women are making stuff, right?
Yeah.
Right, and it's an ill-gotten gain.
But
ill-advised.
Ill-gotten.
Ill-gotten because the man ill-gotten
whatever
because
it is,
the woman should be home raising the kid.
Ill or not, it's productive.
And
so
the woman should be home raising the kid.
Hey, boys, stop. Okay, wait, stop. Okay, both of you were talking at the same time. So you asked why is it ill-gotten, so Hake say why it's ill-gotten, and then let's use name respond and explain why you think that's wrong. Okay?
It's ill-gotten because it's more natural for the woman to stay home and raise the kid and take care of the house, and not to have to do this babysitter or child care thing, leaving the child in the hands of some brainwashed SJW to brainwash the kid, and the man is the man working.
What's your name?
Does that make sense?
I had a question. what if a woman cannot bear children, but she is of breeding age? What should happen to her, Hank?
She can do what she wants. If she has a husband, she doesn't have to work. If she doesn't, then she works.
What if
Stay
she
home
cannot
and
get a
clean the
husband?
house.
If she doesn't have a husband, she can work.
What if she has a wife?
Wait, Hake, would you be okay with this, like, with normalizing men being the stay-at-home parent?
No, that's ridiculous. That's embarrassing.
Okay, well,
This doesn't
I
even
think
fit.
I think there's a reasonable argument for it, right? Especially as we see the economy shift and women start to outperform men in not just the workplace but also in higher education. I think it makes a lot of sense that women are actually going to start becoming the breadwinners, and men are going to start becoming, the provider of secondary income or raising parents or raising kids at home, right? And I think that
You really think that?
yeah, absolutely. And I actually think that this is going to become more and more and more common, right? And I would encourage you to show me some sort of data that suggests having a man be the
More
stay-at-home
common
parent as opposed to
in
a woman being a stay-at-home parent has any sort of negative effect on children.
I wouldn't say what you just said in public. That's pretty embarrassing. And it's a matter of common sense. It's not about data.
I think it's
because people,
great, dude. I would
liberals
love to be a
use
stay-at-home dad.
Don't say
Beta.
that, man.
Mindwaves, do you think
Beta?
it's going to be more common
one
than
second. Wait.
Being the man
Wait,
and taking charge of your
I'm curious.
dynasty.
I'm asking a question. Hey, can you explain why it is embarrassing for Mindwaves to state that publicly? I'm curious.
Because it's natural for the man to be taking care, like what the Canadian man said, and
Who
he
gives a
he
fuck
broke
about
out laughing.
nature?
Apparently, he doesn't believe it, but it's natural for the man to be taking care of the woman and children when the children are young.
Who the
You
fuck
don't want to
gives
be
who gives
taken
a fuck
care
about
of?
who the fuck gives a fuck about what's natural? I'm more interested in good outcomes, right? If something provides good outcomes, I
Natural
don't give a fuck if
causes
it's
good
natural
outcomes.
or not. No,
Natural
natural does
co-
not always equal good. Do
In
you think
this case, it
chlamydia is
does,
good?
though. In this case, it does.
That's not how reality works.
This women's listen, the young lady said something about women's empowerment and women having these options that has been detrimental for families, for children. Divorces have been destroying kids, and people being all selfish in their relationships
Yeah,
and
but
their
you have failed
marriages.
to demonstrate how any of this is because women have entered the workplace or now have the right to work or are now competing with men.
She just said that's women's empowerment, and women's empowerment means that they're on this ego trip, and then they're the ones initiating most of the divorces. It's crazy.
Yes,
It's out of
because the
control.
men, in a lot of cases, don't know how to handle their emotions at all, and domestic
Right.
violence is a very big problem.
Oh,
That is
come
why
on.
women are initiating divorces.
It's
Domestic
don't
violence
try-
is one of
no.
the huge problems women have
We need
in
to
these
reform.
situations.
Don't try to pin that on men. If there's a divorce, it's not the fault of just men or just women. If there's a
I'm not
divorce,
saying that. I am not saying that. But
Okay,
you
okay.
can't deny the statistics around domestic violence.
Okay,
And if
okay,
you think
but
going back
that's
to the
also
50s when women had no option to be able to escape those sort of situations is a better idea,
But
you're
Pixel-
fucking delusional.
Women didn't
Pixel,
have
that's
such
also-
an
wait,
attitude.
hey,
Wait,
hold on,
okay. So I want to stop the show for a second. Just say, let's have a certain level of decorum. Not necessarily being nice to each other. I don't care. You can be either demonic or a godly man. Either way, right? You can be a godly man like Hake or demonic like Mindwaves. It doesn't matter to me. But what matters to me is that I can hear what you're saying. So if we all start yelling over each other, then we hear nothing. So I'm going to have Cam respond to that. And then if somebody else wants to respond to that, we can follow up. But if you hear somebody else talking, do your best to just, let people talk. So at least let them finish their statement before you interject, or at least interject very little. Okay, Cam, and I'll write everybody's name down. So it's Cam. I know Carter raised his hand, and that's his name, and Hake.
Okay, so I'm not saying that like men can't be like super sweet and then on a dime, like 5 years into a marriage, start beating their wife. I'm not saying that it's impossible for that to happen, but I'm saying that I think a lot of times people rush into marriages and marry before they were actually ready or actually knew their partner as well as they should have when they decide to devote the rest of their life to that person. And I think that if you have married somebody and you divorce them outside of domestic violence, and it's, or even if there was domestic violence or abuse happening prior to the marriage, I think that's the marriage shouldn't have happened in the first place. And I think that if your marriage is involved because you argue with your partner all the time and because you treat each other like shit, not physically, that is the fault of both partners. You both agreed to marry a person that your relationship obviously wasn't working with in the first place. And
that's why they should.
Sorry.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
I'm just saying I completely agree with you. I do think that people in the US are getting married far too young because of the lack of sex education and because of the stranglehold on the idea of marriage as the only way that two people can be together in a lot of American communities. And that does result in very dangerous situations for both men and women. So yes, I completely agree with you.
I think that
when you look at the, well, go ahead.
Okay,
well,
I think that.
No. All right, let me just
Okay,
real
go
quick,
ahead.
and then you can respond. I
Yeah.
also just
Then we're
wanted to
gonna
say
go to the list.
there is data that exists to show why most divorce happens, or what are the main factors in the cause of a divorce, right? And the research shows that marrying young is the biggest factor, right next to limited education and income for either person in the relationship. And then living together before being committed to marriage, as well as premarital pregnancy, right? So these are the issues that you want to address if you want to see divorce rates decline.
Okay.
There's your first mistake. If you marry somebody before you've even lived with them, that's obviously you probably shouldn't marry somebody if you haven't experienced living.
No, it's not. It's not saying.
He said don't do that.
It's saying before having a commitment to marry, right? That doesn't necessarily mean that you're like, yeah.
You know, maybe if women just behaved better, they wouldn't have so many divorces happen.
Agree.
Please.
They're the ones initiating the divorces, but they should not be having the sex out of wedlock so that they can get to know each other without all that passion.
But that's
yeah, but that takes two. That's men and women, right?
Exactly.
Right. That's both.
Okay.
Definitely. Yep.
Okay, so I want to go to the list. Carter has been waiting very patiently.
Okay. Yeah, Hake, I have a question. Who made the system that made it like this for women?
Who made the system that
suppresses that's like caused women to be in so much turmoil right now?
Women have voted for this. When we gave them this women's
voting.
Who
runs the system though? Who enacts it? Who's the strong people that do it?
Female-minded males. Female-minded men.
But they're men, right?
Yes, they are males.
So
I wouldn't call them men.
So men dictate.
What is a female?
So this is all men's fault, is what you're saying? Because men.
Yeah, because men have allowed women.
So we should get rid of men.
No,
women are outperforming men.
That's ridiculous.
But that's what you want to. You said the system is broken, and men broke the system.
I said women voting too, though, because we gave them the right to vote, the so-called right to vote, the opportunity to vote.
But men gave them the right, so men screwed it up from the beginning.
Right.
We need to get rid of men.
Right to vote.
It takes two to tango. You have to hold both responsible. Come on, it's
So it's then
women
you're
voting.
Right, that it should be equal.
Women voting has led, according to John R. Lott, PhD, Jr. He showed that women voting has increased all of these so-called progressive policies that have made things tough, where you have to you so-called have to have supposedly 2 incomes to make it as a family, and where people can't even buy homes in California and all that stuff.
Are you admitting that you want to suppress women's ability to vote because it would lead to more progressive policies? Because having people be represented means that people want progressive policies. Are you scared that the people of the United States actually want more progressive policies, and you want to actually restrict their ability to vote?
Yes, because progressive policies are not what's right. It's progressively worse.
Okay, wait. Okay, everybody. I know there's a bunch of people who want to talk, but last username, and then we're going to go back to Hake, because Hake has been waiting to say something separate than Carter asking me that question. So last username first.
Okay, I'm going to take some of the heat off Hake, and I'm going to kind of steelman his position, or at least part of it. I think women today are probably better off than they've ever been before. I don't think they were better off in the past. I think it's great that women have the freedom to do what they want. And they have freedom to have careers and everything, but I think that women are facing some new challenges because of that we tend to be overly dismissive of. Right? Women face some difficult choices between their careers and their family life that are not as big of a deal for men. Like we kind of, for a man, men don't really feel like they have to give up a lot to dedicate themselves to their career. They feel like they can get all their value from their career. They're admired for having careers. For women, that doesn't seem to be the case. Women don't get the kind of esteem that men get for being successful at their careers, and they're not loved for that. And so they are faced with this choice. We're like, well, I could do this career, but I'll have to like ignore other areas of my life, and I'm not going to be like attractive to people or attracted to men because of that. And that's tough. That's a really shitty choice, a situation that women are in. And I don't think it's something that we can just sort of dismiss or say, well, that's just old fashioned. Let's get over it. I think it's something that's a little too deeply ingrained in our nature. And I don't think we're really facing that honestly. What do you guys think of that?
I think that I think that we can move past that sort of mentality, though. You say it's deeply ingrained, but I think that all data suggests that like the younger generations are more accepting of women taking an equal part in contributing in the household, and like I don't think that is something like I don't think that we're always going to
more
value
accepting
women.
So how do you measure how accepting someone really is of that? You could ask them, "Are you accepting of this?" on a survey, and they might say, "Oh yeah, 5. I'm very accepting." But we're talking about like, are you going to, are you going to be like attracted? Are people going to be attracted to you for this? Are you going to be loved? Are you going to be esteemed? Like that's a very hard thing to get from just
I think that
asking
there's a
people in
lot
survey,
more
right?
out of life and things that we should worry about than just being attracted or being desired by another person, right? We can talk
But
about
that's
that
pretty
that conversation.
important. Like
Well, sure, but
there
it's
are
not
other things that
everything,
matter,
right?
but that
I
matters a
would.
lot, right?
Well, yeah, but not to the detriment of like women's ability to vote and be represented, not to the detriment of their ability to choose to enter the workplace. Not, like that's
Yeah,
more
no,
important.
I'm not saying they can vote and choose to do whatever they want. I'm just talking about. I'm just saying that women face some weird sort of conflicting value systems culturally.
So do men.
Right?
It's so do men.
Right.
And this is
sure.
it's a big problem that we all have right now, because I think men's relationship with masculinity, and at least historical masculinity, is also it's hard to break away from, right? When you have been told your entire life that your job or your meaning is to make enough money, to be a breadwinner, to attain a good woman, whatever that is for you. The situation that we're in now, where women can actually make their own money, is inherently a little bit detrimental to the mind frame of men in these situations, because they struggle to kind of ratify, well, if I'm not the breadwinner, then what am I? Right? And so we're all facing problems, but these problems aren't going away by going back to like, well, we just pair the men and the women off one by one very young, and like hope for the best, because it's just not going to happen. Progressivism is going to continue no matter
we shouldn't
what.
go back to that.
I don't think it's necessarily a problem for most men to like have their wives or girlfriends or whatever working. I think that it would be like the construct is more of like to not be working at all, right? That's the embarrassing thing, I think, in most men's mind. But I don't think like most men have an issue if their wives were to be also bringing in an income similar to theirs.
Well, I think that the reality is that there's a lot of households where, unfortunately, like it's just not feasible to have two parents working, and a lot of times one parent has to stay home, right? And if the option is, my wife gets to work and I have to stay home, and she's the breadwinner, well, that's not really accepted in society. I know I was in that position because I was a stay-at-home dad for a little while. And I remember constant pressure by family and others to be like, well, why aren't you the one working? Why are you staying at home, right? I think that does negatively impact men. I think that there's a lot of societal pressure that makes men feel less like a man, or feel less manly if they're not the ones with the income.
They are.
Yeah, something I really wanted to jump in and say that I haven't heard somebody say is that a really big issue.
After you're done, though, I want to throw it to Hake, because he did raise his hand a while ago, and I want to throw it to him.
Okay, yeah, I was trying to actually raise my hand and like point at my hand and point at you to get you to write me down, but yeah, I have the chance now.
I'm bigoted against Canadians.
That's all right. I've heard. Listen, whatever. Anyway, so one thing I've heard people not talk about is how like, and this may seem like something that might be like too woke or too like leftist or whatever, but I feel like there's a really strong philosophical basis for this. That's the idea that we gender a lot of ideal traits and less than ideal traits, and we gender it specifically to men and women. So when we're talking about like working, being in the workforce and things like that, we gender things like rationality in men and we gender like emotionality in women. So we kind of like coach people through nurturing through society to behave and like adopt like particular personality traits. And this kind of it creates a hindrance. And I think that's the phenomena that I think Hake is like trying to say is like natural or something like that. But it's actually just like a force of like nurture, like culture. So I really think that talking about that and addressing that is probably going to be more conducive to progress than trying to harken back to like the golden age.
Okay, I'm gonna throw it over to Hake, but I also want to remind everybody this topic was about Joe Biden's speech. So
bring it back to it after Hake if you want.
I'm gonna actually ask another question about it in a second. It'd be about another section since domestic policy got us to this. But I'll let this last interaction happen. Hake will say something, people can respond, and then we gotta move over. Hake.
So Biden has done nothing but kiss up to women, and this guy made the great point that the women are facing more challenges as they get into these positions because they can't, despite what this man said, they can't handle stress in the same way that men can. They're wired differently. They're more emotional, and they don't have the natural authority that the men have, and so it's not good for them to be in these positions where they're working and being an authority and all that stuff. And on top of that, we have a society where men and women are especially men are getting mature later and later in life. I'm talking about mature character-wise, to where they're not getting married until late. The women are wanting to make their career, and we have this thing where it's harder to make enough money to make a living. So the women's body clocks are running out much quicker than the men's body clocks. So they're having no kids, and then they're ending up even worse off than they realized that they would.
So wait, before anybody else talks, Hake, what do you think it means when the women are wired differently and are more emotional? Can you explain that for me?
Men and women are different. Women are emotional and intellectual. Men tend to be more logical, and they fit naturally in with the working and authority.
So in the human brain, how does that manifest? Like, what does that look like in the human brain?
I'm not interested in the human brain. I don't know. I would say that women raise the kids ages 0 to 3. They have the babies. They raise the kids ages 0 to 3. And then they kind of watch over the kids, let them do their thing. But the man kind of takes over the raising of the kids so that the kids don't grow up thinking all emotional and out of control like women.
Just to be clear, because I'm going to cut you off just because I know Dylan doesn't want to move on to another subject. To be clear, you're making prescriptions about the human brain, but when I asked you to explain more and like defend some kind of actual functional basis in the brain, you said, I don't know, and just kind of like went on from there. So I just want you to embrace the fact that you have no fucking idea what you're talking about.
No, not true.
Well, Brys, we can measure things about personality without knowing
we gotta let Hake
how the
respond to
physical
that.
brain, how they're manifested in the physical brain.
Yeah, you made an assumption that I was talking about the brain. I'm talking about reality. Women are more emotional.
Yes, that is
than men,
reality. The brain is reality. The brain is located in between. I know. Well, for you, there might not be much in there, but sorry, my bad. I apologize.
You're fine.
But,
I don't care. I'm fine. It's fun.
Okay, so
don't worry about it.
This is reality. Okay, there's a brain in there for most people.
And women are more emotional. This is reality. And you claiming that it's nurture. Is just a claim.
I don't know why you fight with Hake. There's probably 1,000 people in America that think like him. It's totally pointless to try to convince him otherwise or to understand. I don't know what happened to you, Hake, but I'm sorry.
Well, come on.
So you're pretending that the women
again,
are...
I'm going to defend Hake to some extent.
Yeah.
There's pretty well very measurable personality differences between men and women. I don't think we know like specifically down to the neurological level what causes those differences, but you can measure those differences without knowing everything about how the brain works. So I think Brys's criticism is not really fair. You can't just say, well, you don't know exactly how the brain works, so you can't say anything about the brain. I mean, we say a lot of things about the brain without knowing how the brain works, right?
Men and women in general are psychologically different and they behave different, but that doesn't necessarily justify what Hake's saying.
Yeah,
no,
exactly.
It doesn't.
So the criticism that I have is valid because I'm saying that he's making really serious prescriptions from like a basis of the brain, right? He's saying something about like women and men as being physiologically different, right? Well, yes,
they're spiritually different too.
But the spirit doesn't exist. Like we're not going to get into
You're
this.
claiming that. You claim that, but that's not.
So
the spirit doesn't exist. How do you know that?
If
show me the study that says the spirit doesn't exist. You have no effing idea what you're talking about. Thank you.
Hey, you got
okay,
hate
hold
fired
on.
up.
So
on that.
we're not gonna like veer off into this metaphysical conversation about like dualism and whether or not like the spirit is real and all this shit.
I don't know.
Because we could literally spend like hours and bore the fuck out of Chad talking about this shit.
Brys,
but the point is that
backed you into a goddamn corner with your own rhetoric, bro.
not at all. So the problem is that you're trying to, so everything you're trying to say is the based out of like a reality, because that was your words, right? So this is not following your own logic. You said this is reality, meaning that there's something like in our objective world, our experience world. So it's something like a physical in the brain, in the brain. So to kind of veer off and try to pivot to the point that it might be like a spirit or spiritual thing is an entirely different argument than saying that like men are like emotional. Sorry, women are more emotional and so on and so forth, right? Like you've moved on to a different point entirely now.
The spirit is reality, and my point that the women voting more quote unquote progressive than men bears that out. Thanks, I'm done.
I think that like I don't know why any of us give a fuck about like the claims you're making, because you're not able to support them at all, right? When it comes to like the actual data, women have shown to be more than capable in management roles and perform better in higher education, right? I think that women in general are happier now than they were ever before.
No, not true.
Well,
you think that, but that's not true.
Well, okay. Well, you could talk about mental illness or whatever, but that's true for everybody. That this is nothing unique to women, right? The opportunities that exist for women are greater than they ever been, and that means really good outcomes for our economy, right? So I don't know how you can argue. Or basically, your whole argument relies on basically pointing towards like single family homes or all these other unrelated negative outcomes and pinning it on women's ability to vote and women's ability to enter the workplace, right?
You're calling
none of which you can substantiate or draw a link to.
Yeah, I have. The women getting all this ego and initiating most of the divorces, them doing these progressive policies for the past, voting in these progressive policies for the past anti-family
none of that has anything to do or
years.
has any sort of link to the negative like consequences that you're pointing towards, though.
Yeah, it does.
Okay,
Well,
you can say that, but you haven't demonstrated that to be true.
Look at the women single mothers raising the out of control criminal children. It's just look around you. It's in your face, but you just don't see it.
Hey, before women could vote, who could vote?
The male landowners.
Okay,
white male landowners.
Men did this, right? Because men voted for women to be able to vote, so it's all men's fault again.
Right, men listening to women should never have done it.
No, because men voted white male landowners. It's all men's fault.
They listened to the woman. They listened to the women.
Then it's men's fault. They listened to him.
Okay, we gotta move on. I'm sure. I know. I like that we did something amazing today. Originally, we only had 2 topics. Now we had 3. The first topic is Ukraine. The second one is women. Maybe now the third one will be Biden's thing on Biden's speech. I want to bring up this last section, which is Biden started talking about COVID and his response to COVID. Of course, saying that he has a good response to COVID, bringing up the fact that this is the first time that during the State of the Union, this is the last State of the Union had to be canceled, and this is the first time they're all together without masks. What did you guys think of Biden's speech on COVID?
I thought it was great. I mean, we've licked this thing. I know there's still people dying, but I think we're in the endemic stage, and Biden, he helped get us there. We have new therapeutics to deal with it as we move forward, and he even talked about how if you get a positive test at a pharmacy, you're going to get pills right then and there to deal with it. So I think America seeing all our leaders without masks was really inspirational and positive. So I thought it was great.
I thought that it was interesting that all of our masks, but it's still a requirement that I wear a mask in an airport.
Well, I didn't catch what you said.
Yeah, you broke up for a second.
I said I thought that it was interesting that all of our leaders were in the same building without masks, but it's still a federal law that I'm required to wear a mask in an airport.
I gotta say, Cam, What's your stance on Biden's stance on the broadband stuff? Because it sounds like you could use some of that.
Oh yeah, is it bad? It might be my mic.
You're just cutting in and out. Don't worry about it. It's okay.
Okay, is it still doing it?
It's your Discord auto mute thing.
Auto mute thing.
Yeah, if
push to talk, you mean?
Yeah. I think it's either push to
gain.
talk or it's the noise gain. It's one of the two.
Okay.
Anybody else want to say anything on that, or?
I think I'd be a little hesitant. I think the stats do make it seem like Biden could be correct about the COVID stuff and that we're like emerging out of it. But we do need to be a little bit careful because it is like spring and summertime almost. So we could see like the shift to the seasons being some kind of reduction on the cases that we're experiencing. So, but that aside, like I feel like I don't want to like sign off on that just yet. But also, I do think that he had a really, really good point about the advances in medicine, right? Like we've had a ton of stuff up here in Canada. There are a number of different like things that people are looking at, like different alternate vaccines and medications. And yeah, there's a bunch of really great shit coming out of America in terms of like advancements. So I think that part was a great part of the speech.
I mean, I wouldn't credit Biden with the ending of the pandemic. I think this is the natural evolution of a virus. Omicron is a variant that is far more transmissible and far less lethal. So the unvaccinated are going to get immunity to it once they get it. It's spreading rapidly, and it's going to give people natural immunity. This is what happens with viruses. They naturally devolve to be less lethal.
Okay, I was gonna throw it over. There was two people trying to speak. That's IRI and Hake, and because I'm a dirty Democrat, I'm gonna get to IRI first and then Hake.
I don't even remember what I was gonna say, honestly.
Typical Democrat.
Thank you, though.
I think it's a shame that Biden is acting like everything's fine when he demonized the unvaccinated, said our patience is wearing thin, like I mentioned before with you guys. And I think he was wearing a mask out in a field, walking from that helicopter thing on Monday, and then all by himself out in the open. And then on Tuesday, it's all just this as what DeSantis said. Yeah, COVID theater, China virus theater. It's phony, and it's really kisses up to the people who are more authoritarian or trying to force everybody else to follow what they think that they should do.
Don't you think like that's all politics though?
Yeah.
Like build the wall, like everything, right? You know what I mean? Like it's all
what do you mean about the build the wall thing?
Pander to a crowd. Build a wall is just making people feel better. It's just political theater, like anything. Don't you think it's all just political theater?
He was building the wall though. Biden had to stop it. Biden stopped.
And Mexico's going to pay for it.
Yeah, I think they would have paid for it through the remittances.
The thing is,
the remittances and other things.
The thing is if it was like really like some substantial health issue. I'm not saying I'm talking about masks. If it was some substantial health issue where it's really going to save your life if you wear a mask, then I think the president in his 70s, while in close proximity to other people, should probably be taking his health as seriously as he is health, right?
So I have a couple of things I want to say to that.
It doesn't make sense that they would be like, oh, you're going to get COVID and die if you don't wear a mask. But then they're seen while there is mandates and while they are supposed to be wearing masks, are seen in photographs not wearing masks, like many of these Democrats have been.
To Hake's defense,
yeah.
So to Hake's defense, I do think that there is credibility in the idea that we are a bit heavy-handed in some of the language that we use with the unvaccinated. I think the approach and like the encouragement and what we're doing with regards to getting like informing people and like helping them understand like the safety and efficacy, et cetera, in terms of like the vaccination stuff. But I do think some of the language and like treatment can be a bit like over the top and a little overzealous. Like I do think that there is some like a little bit of dialing back that we could do.
Yeah, this is part of
there's any reasoning with these people. These people are doing their Facebook research. You're not going to talk your way quietly and calmly to convincing them of anything. These people are thick-headed and drunk on misinformation. There's no getting through to them. You have to use the stick and make their life onerous and difficult, or they won't get vaccinated or whatever.
I think,
but I don't think you should.
I'm tired of pussyfooting around these people. Screw them.
True.
Well, you have to pussyfoot around people to live with them in a peaceful society.
You don't have to pussyfoot around anyone. Get on board, shit, or get off the pot. Stop making the rest of us have to live through this thing for another year. It's ridiculous. They extended this. The reason why Omicron even...
Nobody's making you live through the thing for another year, right? Like we are, by and large, having a success with educating and informing people that like these things are safe, they're good for you, they're effective, etc. And we're seeing that turn into like more people getting the vaccines and like getting the second jab or the boosters.
IRI, what do you propose we do with the unvaxxed?
They can live their lives. They're just gonna have to not be able to do a bunch of stuff, and that's on them. Sorry, you know.
Why?
Why should we work around them?
Okay.
Why should we work around them? Who are they? Why are they so special?
Why should they work around you? Why are you so special?
Because there's 10 times more of us.
You can't quantify that. You can't
yes, we can.
Why does that matter?
Come on. Might is right.
Why does it matter?
How society works. You got 3 kids.
Minorities do not have rights.
One of them wants to go to Burger King. You're going to Taco Bell.
Okay.
There's a lot more people that like bananas.
Law and order. Law and order. Okay. Law and order. We have a in a video game death penalty for this show. Okay. So be careful. Okay. So IRI, can you just clearly state your position? And then we can have Cam respond. And I think last year's name wanted to get in there. Is anybody else wanted to get in on what IRI is saying? Hake. Oh, fuck. Okay, everyone. Okay. Hake. Canadian man, super Canadian man, Canadian Mario, and Carter.
Very simple. There's 10 times us than them. Get fucked.
Very solid argument. Thank you. I have no refutation.
I'm gonna throw it to Hake for that one. And do you have a response to that, Hake?
Yeah, this is part of that. Not to be offensive, but that female-minded male thinking where women have this fear, they try to impose their will on people, whereas men just have natural authority. Like this logical Canadian up here said that if you reason with people are going to be a little bit more trusting rather than when they do this, oh, get vaccinated, oh, you have to do it. And you're just making people untrusting of you when you're trying to force people to do something. It's causing a lack of trust.
We've done all we can to try to make vaccines more available and encourage people to get them, right? What more could we do to convince the people that are absolutely refuse to vaccinate, right?
Leave them alone.
No, you don't get to just leave them alone, right? You
Why
don't
not?
get to because why should these unvaccinated people put other people that do choose to get the vaccine, right? Or people that are unable to get the vaccine, why should they put others at risk, right? Why should they have the right to be able to go maskless?
We all put each other at risk in many different ways, right?
Right. That's the thing.
It's dangerous living with other people.
Yeah, people blame the quote unquote unvaccinated for the extension of the shutdowns. I don't believe that the shutdowns were many of the shutdowns were ever necessary.
Hey,
it was this onerous kissing up to the fear of the women and the female-minded males.
Hey, Mindwaves and IRI, men are likely to get in car accidents. Young men are likely to get in car accidents. Exactly why they're generally higher. So why should men have the right to go on the roads and put everybody else at risk since they're more prone to get in car accidents? Because to be clear, unvaccinated people don't have COVID. They just have a little bit higher of a risk to get COVID than people who are vaccinated. So why should these dirty young men be allowed to drive on the streets with everybody else?
If there was a vaccine that would make young men not be like crash less, then I would force them to get it too. All right, but that doesn't exist. Okay,
but men put people at risk every day on the roads. No, every day on the roads, men put people at risk. Young men, particularly. Yes,
if you want to.
Yes. To his point. John Arlott mentioned in his debunking of the Ferguson report that the National Traffic Highway Safety Administration showed that black drivers, black car owners were more than twice as likely. No, listen, this is serious. Black car owners were more than twice as likely to die in car accidents per their share of car owners. And among those, they were more likely to have moving violations.
Why is that?
So
Yeah,
you people would be justifying the driving while black supposed
Why is
myth.
that, Hake? Why
You
is
guys
that
would be
true?
justifying the driving while black thing.
Listen to him. He's
repeating
your argument.
Their skin is darker, Mindwaves. Duh.
And like you said, IRI, there's more
It's
white
the bad
people than
car
black
driving
people,
gene,
so the
right?
white
Do
people
women
get to
have
make
that
the
gene
rules,
as
right?
well?
So you
Should they not be able
discriminate
to
against
drive?
men, but especially black males. You guys would.
By the way, like there's a complete difference with driving on a road, right? You get a license, that's your vaccine, right? You have a thing that says you get to participate in a specific part of society, right? You get a vaccine, you can go to the DMV or be in public or do whatever, right? It's a norm because society is built on the idea of safety, that your neighbor won't come and just shoot you or kill you or whatever. There's
Yes, but you don't.
Your license doesn't guarantee you won't get into an accident.
You're right, it doesn't guarantee you, but what does it do? It gives you a peace of mind, right?
Your
That's how
medical
society is
record.
structured.
I don't care about other people's peace of mind. Your medical history shouldn't decide whether or not you have.
But you
free
already
will.
do
That is
things
insane.
that limit your free will.
That is
You already do it.
That is actually crazy.
Correct me
We're
if
not
I'm
talking
wrong.
about people's medical history. We're talking about a vaccine, right?
Yes,
It's not like it's not like we're having people disclose their entire medical history. We're just requiring people to get a vaccine, which is proven to be safe, right, and readily available. So what's the problem?
That doesn't mean people have to get it. There's lots of things that are safe that people don't necessarily have to be forced to get. Otherwise, they don't have free will. That is insane. What you're advocating for is crazy. Right?
All rights are limited, right?
You are saying
and if limiting a right a little bit, a small portion of people that refuse.
Okay, he's been muted. Okay, so finally got to mute Mindwaves again. So happy about it. Okay,
Feel good?
Felt amazing. Oh my goodness! As a 21-year-old now, the real arm of the law. Okay.
Nobody
anyway,
cares you're 21, Dylan. Right?
Wow, look at that. The loving, supportive Hake,
enjoy it.
Right? A real man, not a beta male. And
Beta.
the very mean.
Look,
and
I
cold
told
and
you to take your
dismissive
friends out to a
Mindwaves.
bar and actually go have a real 21st birthday.
The
and
thing
you
is,
chose
but
to stay at
that's the thing
home
with the
and-
left. Do you believe that a real man celebration is hedonism or practicing hedonistic tendencies?
Yes.
When I want to celebrate my birthday in labor and doing the things that have made me have success at a young age, and not towards your hedonistic tendency, Mindwaves.
Oh, Dylan, I know the truth. All right.
Okay, buddy. Okay. Anyway, we're gonna have. I don't want you two yelling over each other. So just we're gonna have Mindwave state what his position is clearly. Then we'll just have Cam clearly state what he says in response. And
yeah,
I
think that this idea appealing to like liberties or freedom or whatever is nonsense, right? People don't have the freedom to be carriers of disease and to transmit that to other people, right? So yeah, absolutely. I'm completely in favor of some sort of government limiting of freedoms for those that choose not to get a vaccine when it's been proven to be safe and readily available. All right, there's nothing stopping you from getting a vaccine other than you choosing not to. So fuck
which
'em.
I have the right to do. So
yeah, you have the right to do, but you don't have the right to not get vaccinated and then go infect other people, right?
I don't have the right to free will and self-determination. Crazy.
No, actually, yeah, I would agree. Rights aren't absolute. Yeah, 100%.
Let me respond. My medical history. You said it's not medical history. I'm vaccinated, to be clear. I actually have my booster. Right. I had to get it to go to Spain.
Poggers.
Okay, then you're not going to the camps. What's the problem?
Yeah, right. Exactly. So anyway, freedom doesn't. You're just arguing freedom equals nonsense and just like, I guess, advocating for authoritarianism. My free will and self-determination shouldn't be determined by my medical history. You said it's not medical history. It absolutely is. It's a medically administered vaccine. That's exactly what's in some states is determining whether or not people have free will, whether they're allowed to go to the gym and exercise, whether they're allowed to sit down in a restaurant or go in public buildings, right? And you can say, oh, well, they should suck it up. It's just a restaurant or it's just a gym. But those are things you have the right to do. That's free will. You have the right to exercise free will and do whatever.
Don't have the right.
Why do you
think
what gives you that right?
Do you think that
You
parents
don't have
should
a right to go to the gym.
Yeah. Do you think that parents
What if
should
the
have
gym wants to let you go to the
Do you think that the parents should have the ability to not choose to not vaccinate their children and then send in their children into public schools where they can then pass on preventable diseases to other children?
We should close the public schools.
Sure. I mean,
Sorry, go ahead.
Yes.
And if it's okay to require vaccines for children in public schools, why is it not okay to require vaccines of people to have certain liberties in the general public?
Wait, repeat. Sorry.
If it's okay to have that policy of requiring vaccines for children in public school, then why is it not okay to have to require people to be vaccinated to do certain things in public.
Okay. So first of all, two things here. There is a there's a stark contrast between saying in order to go to a public school that's funded by the government, you have to have a vaccine. And I'm not saying anything about that. And but between that and also saying in order to go into public, into a building that's not owned by the government, it's not funded by the government, it's a private institution that the government has nothing to do with, it is completely different for the government to step in and say, you can't go to that private institute or that private building, that private business, whatever it might be, and sit down because you're not vaccinated just because we deem it so. We've deemed that because you don't have a vaccine, you have to sit home all day and twiddle thumbs. No, I don't think the government should have that power. I think that it's an extremely slippery slope to a lot of bad stuff.
Why? Where?
You don't think that the government creating like a caste of people that don't have free will
We are not creating a subclass of people. The ability to get the vaccine is available. You can go get vaccinated right now.
That doesn't mean you have to do it. It doesn't mean you have to.
You're not oppressing people. To say that this is creating a class means that somebody is trying to prevent them from moving up the class ranks, right? The vaccine's available. Go get the fucking vaccine, and then you can do whatever the fuck you want.
I think telling people that they have to stay home, that they can't go consume things, and that they also can't work is absolutely preventing.
No, you can. Just get the fucking vaccine. Why is it such a big deal?
The government tells you you can't drink and drive.
Unfortunately, Mindwaves, people like saying get the fucking vaccine doesn't seem to work. It seems like there's just going to be some.
It does actually. Most people are vaccinated. What do you mean it doesn't work?
It doesn't work for everyone.
Well, there's definitely some
people. There's a small vocal minority that aren't
persuaded by that.
Curious.
Right?
Wait, 1 second. Wait. Okay. So I was trying to listen to last username say a single word there, and I was unable to achieve that simple goal. So could you please restate what you said last username? And then I'm gonna go to this list. Don't worry, I've been keeping track.
Given that there are going to be some people who refuse to get it for whatever reason, and you can try to say, look, just get it. It's perfect. Like, get it. And then just going to say no. Like, let's say whatever their reasons are, they're not going to do it. Then you have to decide, okay, is it acceptable to take away these people's rights because they didn't get it? So that's the question, right? And then you got to like, what rights are you going to take away? If they want to get together with other people who know that they're not vaccinated and are okay with that, and they're meeting in like private property, what is that? Should they not have the right to do that? If everyone present is consenting to this greeting of non-vaccinated people, then why shouldn't they have the right to do that?
Nobody's arguing that. What do you mean?
Like, I don't think
everybody is arguing it, because if you're in a business, right? Wait, if you're in a private business,
we're talking about a business.
If we're in a private business that does not require vaccination to enter, then everybody in there is consenting to the fact that not everybody that enters the building will be vaccinated.
But America
is absolutely the same.
Private businesses that are essential, like grocery stores, right? And that's not fair, right? Then like that's the same thing, right? And also going into public, there's a bunch of things you do every day to guarantee your safety in public, right? Or at least ensure some of it, right? If you drive without a license, what happens? There's a chance that you go to jail, right? Or get in trouble or get a big ticket, right? Just like that, there should be a big penalty with going into public, posing a danger like not having a license or a vaccine, right? It's the same concept.
There's no comparison.
Yes,
you guys are acting like
driving.
this thing is so protective. You have to get like 4 booster shots now, and this thing isn't. Correct me if I'm wrong. There's no long-term studies of this thing, so we don't actually know. But these female-minded liberal males who have this fear and oppressive mindset want to force people. They tend to go overboard with this fear-mongering and quote-unquote protecting people against their will. It's ridiculous.
Hey, there's no outdoors in public doesn't seem to be a big problem, right?
Yep.
Right. Outdoors, like, it doesn't seem very transmissible outdoors. So we're talking about indoors, and indoors in a private business. I don't think you should be able to tell someone, like, all businesses, they have to require that people are vaccinated. If a business wants to say, we allow unvaccinated people, and they put a sign up and make that clear to everyone coming in. If you come in here, you're going to be around unvaccinated people. Don't do it if you're not comfortable with that. That seems like a reasonable policy to me. No one's being forced to go in there. right?
Okay.
You're choosing to go in
And
there
if-
knowing
Okay,
the
wait.
policy.
I'm sorry to stop you, Kim, but Pixel hasn't said
Okay.
anything in a while, and she wanted to get a word in. And then we still have other people on the list, so I want to make sure we get down the list before the end of the show. Pixel?
Good.
Oh, it's okay. I was just giving the men their time in the sun. It's interesting that it is female-minded, though. When I think, look, if you want to say female-minded men making bad decisions, what does that mean for you? Is that they're showing empathy, and that's a bad thing? Because like, fuck the sick, fuck immunocompromised kids who can't get vaccinated right now, and you know we don't have any long-term studies on how the transmission of COVID could affect those people. Like, do you just? What's your
First of
answer
all,
to that?
empathy is a liberal word. You are right. And this imposing your will on people before you actually know what you're doing to people's bodies is it's a illogical and overreactive trait, because you're being oppressive to people without any reason, just because you think that this thing is the cure-all, when there are many other ways to be protective and considerate. Personal space, giving people their personal space. They call it social distancing. Staying home when you're sick. There's all kinds of things. Being healthy in the first place. They shut down gyms and told people to stay home and not get outside. People gained like 20 pounds with these shutdowns. You guys, when I say you guys, the liberals who have supported the shutdowns and the rhinos have been counterproductive to people's health and caused a net life years lost.
Have you had a look at the Australian response to COVID and how our death rate
Yes.
compares to the American one?
I was just gonna say the immunocompromised children. We should just stuff them in the camps. We'll take a book right out of the Australian COVID response.
To the gulag.
Or
Right
a
to the
page,
gulag.
page right out of the book.
What do you guys think happened here? Just
You
compare
guys
the
actually
numbers.
have internment camps, like actual internment camps for people who have been exposed to COVID, like
They're
literal
not
ones.
internment camps. Have you seen?
Yes, they are. They come to your door and say you're going to be charged $10,000 if you don't get in the van, and then they take you to a camp and
Don't.
people.
I
No.
literally just had
People-
COVID.
yes,
I
dude.
stayed inside for a week. That's all I had to do.
It's not in all of Australia. It's in I don't what are they?
I'm in
like,
Victoria, homie. I'm in the state that had the long lockdown before there was vaccines, when people in your country were dying because of the lack of response, right?
Our
But
country's
we
more
don't have
popular,
that
it's
anymore.
fatter.
We have no restrictions. No one's wearing masks anymore.
I don't remember what part of Australia it was that was doing internment camps, but they literally were, and I can send you
I
sources on it,
do.
and
I
people
do,
lost their
because
jobs
I
'cause they were
literally
stuffed in there
live.
for 2 weeks.
She's okay with oppression. And she doesn't have a clue what our population is like. Our population is fat. We have a lot of the. They said that the blacks and other minorities were suffering more from this. I think they had they had more obesity and more diabetes and all of that stuff. We have a health issue in America, talking about just basic health, and that's what caused much of it. And a lot of the people ignore that stuff.
Gosh, maybe you should expand your healthcare system so it's available to like disadvantaged people or like poor people. That could be really good though. That would make people healthier, and then they'd be able to be like super individualists. They'd be able to be healthy if you expanded.
So-called healthcare isn't about health. It's sick care. You're just enabling and making things worse.
Yeah,
Well,
wanting
then
healthcare is a woman-minded trait. Okay,
Exactly, Mindwaves.
When you're doing it from the government,
I really need to interject.
You are doing
no.
that.
Hang on. Hey, the thing is,
I'm muted. I'm sorry. You're all piling on Hake. Just back off. Just Hake, could you say what you were saying? I'm sorry. You got fucking piled on by everybody. And then we can go back to the list.
I forget what I said at the end, but I probably would have just repeated what I said.
Okay, no worries. But to Canadian then.
all right,
Maple
thank you.
syrup.
A couple of things. I noticed that you keep saying female-minded, and I just want to link back to when you said they're wired differently, which is like a physical thing, not a spiritual thing. But anyway, sorry, to actually respond to what you said, the healthcare thing. You know that outside of the U.S., majority of healthcare systems are largely preventative. Like what doctors do is try to prevent you from getting diseases, whereas in the U.S., you have the like treatment system. And don't get me wrong, like you guys are great at treating shit, but you suck at preventing stuff.
Yeah, and then our basic health habits are really bad as well. But it's
Right.
you
No,
don't
but so
need
you
to pass it
concede.
on to the
Hang on,
government.
hang on, hang on. You concede that this is a structural difference from the U.S. and the rest of the world's healthcare systems, in that the rest of the world, well, basically every other capitalist country that has realized like taking care of your citizens is a good thing, um, uh, have a practice of being preventative, right, in terms of the medicine. So they do treat a lot of stuff, yes, but they try to take approaches to being preventative as compared to the U.S., which
Okay.
is why you have this sick care in the U.S. Just wanted to
Right.
clarify. So Pixel's argument to you still stands.
Yeah, but she's trying to have the government taking care of everybody, which is
Which is preventative medicine, yes.
counterproductive.
No, it's not counterproductive. It's
It is
still a very
counterproductive.
productive
We don't
intersection.
need we don't need America to become more like those countries. Maybe in that way, if what you're saying is true, we could learn a few things, but we don't need to become these so-called capitalist countries are commie capitalist countries, and they're enforcing things that are not about actual health. They're enforcing things that are, they're pushing abortions and and the LGBT madness and all kinds of stuff.
Oh,
So
that damn LGBT madness, man.
it's not good for people.
Yeah, so somebody else can go.
All right.
Well, can I clarify? Is it the general point not good for people, or specifically LGBT madness not good for people?
Both of those things.
Okay, good to know.
Yeah.
And next is Carter, who raised his hand a while ago and probably forgotten his point.
Yeah, how'd you know?
Okay.
I completely forgot. I have no idea.
Next is IRI, who might remember his point. I have more confidence.
I do actually. I kind of do.
Best
I wanted
bet.
to just say to
I have a
Cam.
perfect betting record. Perfect. Okay.
Nice. Cam, I want to say if there was a vaccine that could prevent young men from crashing their car and killing people, and wouldn't you want them to take that instead of just driving around and killing people? I mean, I think that's the analogy going back to your story, your hypothetical. It's not that young men are just driving. It's that there's also, as Mindwaves pointed out, a vaccine to prevent young men from crashing and killing people.
There's a slightly higher risk that men will crash their cars than women, or young men particularly. Will crash their cars. But if young men didn't trust this vaccine that would prevent them from crashing a car, which I probably wouldn't trust a vaccine that alleges that it will prevent me from crashing my car. It sounds like something a genie in a little bottle would offer me. I would say that they don't have to take it if they don't want to.
Would you not look at the clinical trials and evidence? I mean, it's not how you feel about it.
I would advocate that they do take it. As I said before, I am vaccinated and I'm boosted. It was a requirement for me to go to Spain, and I didn't have a problem with getting boosted if it meant that I got to spend 2 weeks in the Canary Islands. I'm vaccinated, but I don't think that everybody should be forced to choose between
if people thought that getting a license and the whole process was like too much of a restriction on their freedom to drive, would you be okay with them like choosing not to?
A driver's license does not restrict you from doing essentially anything that involves leaving your house. I don't have a driver's license. I'm 22 years old and I don't have a driver's license. I operate in the world just fine, and I don't live in a city. I live in
and
a
if you
rural
got
area.
pulled over, you would get a ticket, right?
Yeah, that's the point, right?
Because
I
don't
drove a car.
Because I haven't shown that I know how to drive a car, right?
So you've shown you can't. You're a danger to society.
But
just like how people who choose to unvaccinate chose to put other people in danger, right?
They're not necessarily putting other people in danger. This is such a lie.
Restrict my free will. That doesn't restrict me from essentially doing anything in the world.
Yes,
right?
it does, because if you don't live that way,
when I say anything, I don't mean that it doesn't prevent. Wait, can I respond? Or when I say it doesn't prevent me from doing anything, I'm not saying that it doesn't stop me from doing like anything. I'm saying that it doesn't stop me from. What I mean rather is that it doesn't stop me from doing everything. Right? If you're not vaccinated in some states, like New York City is getting ready to lift all of their COVID restrictions. But for a long time, if you lived in New York City and you weren't vaccinated, you effectively couldn't do anything. And
what do you mean anything? You could do plenty of things.
You couldn't go in any public building. Well, it was required.
Why do you need to go in a public building?
Oh, okay, IRI. Why don't you demonstrate this experiment? We'd love to see. Maybe you could do like a subathon. Maybe not even a subathon, because then you'd be making money. Why don't you just like live stream yourself not going anywhere for the next month? I'd love to see you do so well.
That's like
not
all
being
of
allowed to
Hey,
leave
Twitch.
home.
What
I
do you
could
mean?
stay home and order delivery. Yeah, that's
what I
like
did.
every streamer on
Okay.
Twitch and every viewer.
Yeah, the difference
Challenge
is you work from
possible.
home. Like not everybody works from home. I understand this. Like
But
I
that's the
work from
point you made,
home,
right?
There
They
are
had to do something, get a
but
license, right?
not everybody works from home. Like I'm losing where we're even at right
there's no long-term studies for this thing. There's no basis to mandate it like the way that they're doing it. There are notices going up, at least one notice that purportedly went up that says student athletes, sports physicals are done primarily to make sure you are not at high risk for sudden cardiac death on the playing field. And they're saying that COVID vaccination affects your risk. And people are making these claims. I think that we should look more seriously at them rather than shrug them off and pretend, oh, we can trust these pharmaceutical companies and these CDC. I don't know, but I'm just saying, why not? Why do you guys have to rush to this type of mandate thing?
now. I
You
also
think like a
don't
woman,
think
Mindwaves?
Wait, I think that forcing people to get vaccinated doesn't help those people that really don't want to get vaccinated, right? It just instills more distrust.
Yeah.
A lot of the people I
Yes.
know that are unvaccinated aren't unvaccinated because they don't trust the vaccine. They're unvaccinated because they said the government's trying to make me do it. I don't want to listen to the government. I don't want to do what the government wants me to do. So you're just
Absolutely.
pushing those people further away.
And there
But
are
the
people
government
who
makes you do stuff all day.
and there
you
are people
comply all day long. Both of you.
But this is the
Hake
first
and
time.
Cam.
This is the first time the government has said, "Get this injection," where you don't have free will, and not the federal government.
This is a once in a
Mostly
100
local
years
governments.
pandemic. You're acting like this is the
Okay,
norm moving
pandemic.
forward. It's not. It's the
No,
one in
but
a
this is
100
a
years
new-
public
no,
health
but-
emergency.
Didn't
But
we require
vaccine
people to get
mandates-
polio
But
vaccines?
vaccine mandates that require you get vaccinated or not have free will are a completely new precedent. It's completely new. It's not been done before in the United States and in most of the Western world. Maybe there's been things similar in like.
Well,
It
welcome
was
to how the world
extremely
advances,
emotionally
you know?
charged. It became
I
really
don't
emotional and
know.
really political and ideological.
Yeah.
Like, you know, people, the pro-vax people were like very, very, there's this very aggressive, condescending attitude. And I have no doubt that caused a lot of the resistance to vaccines.
No,
And there are
the
some
the resistance to
it was-
vaccine came
No
from
doubt.
misinformation spread by
What
idiots
created the
all over the
demand for that
internet.
misinformation?
That's it.
Why was it so appealing to people to
Probably
want
our
to have a reason
American-
not to get vaccinated?
Our American education system is probably mostly to blame, to be honest. I mean, look what
Why-
happened
why
to
did-
Hake over here.
People wanted reasons not to get vaccinated because they didn't want to submit. They felt like the
Trump
government's
told
trying
them not
these-
to get
the
vaccinated.
government's trying to make
No,
me
he
do
did
this, and
not.
my
Oh, he
political
did
enemies are
not.
trying to
That's
make
a
me do
lie.
this. It must be something wrong with this, and they look for a reason to. They look for something wrong with it, and that's what created the demand. And the people with the misinformation came in to fill that demand. That's what was happening.
And there has
the
been
whole
ca-
anti-vax industry was created by this politicization of the issue, right? If we just avoided that and just didn't, jump right to fucking like authoritarian, like we got to crush him, we got to force it on him, kick down the doors and jab him. We just avoided politicizing it. I think we would have come out much better and we would have much more people vaccinated.
there have
It's
been
hard to
cases.
say, it's hard to say
well.
to not politicize it when it's a political issue, though, right? How we address this,
It doesn't have to
what
be a
sort of-
political issue. It doesn't have to
It
be.
is though,
Doesn't have-
because it does require some sort of address by the federal government and state government,
Why?
right? Like, because we have to deal with it, right? You have to have some
you
sort
don't
of
you don't have
preventative
to you don't need
measures
the government to
spread
force people to do this. If it doesn't work, if the government forcing people to do it results in more people not doing it, then that's not a good solution, right?
Then how do you solve the logistics? Well, you're going to appeal to the free market, but how do you solve the logistics of getting people access to vaccines, right?
Well, access is
The
one thing.
the government has
The
some
government
role
providing
to
free
play.
vaccines, that's not necessarily a problem. It's the mandates and the sort of attitude of like you have to do this.
There's
or you're
there's a
bad
huge
person.
difference between the government like attempting to like make something more available and like red pill blue pilling them and saying like either get the vaccine and have free will or don't get it and don't have free will. Like there's a huge difference between those two things, and when you do that you're literally just going to farther alienate people, and it's a lot better to have a lot of people vaccinated because they decided to do it on their own than have a lot of people vaccinated because you held them down and shoved it in.
And I'm not sure how necessary this thing is. And there have been cases where a lot of people medically should not get the vaccine, or have medical exemptions, and they're still getting this crazy discrimination, even though they're doing some of these clampdowns on these people make no logical sense in terms of keeping people safe or keeping people protected from the virus. It's phony.
So I'll check out my thoughts. I think
you guys are playing mama.
It's a little down the middle. I think that the way that last username takes the ball and runs with it is, I don't agree with that. But I do think that there is merit in the treatment that we've given people that were like either unsure about vaccines or whatever. And obviously we know IRI's response to this. There's 10 million of us, or like 10 times as many of us get fucked. But the simple fact is that we have been pretty severe and pretty shitty, especially on social media. Like the blowback on social media to these people and the immediate like knee-jerk responses to these people has been pretty bad indication of culture. But obviously I don't go as far as everybody.
I think it was mostly a joke what IRI said, but I think like the whole like there's 10 times more of us get fucked is like a pretty brain dead take when it comes to like if you actually want people to support what you're saying, if you actually want people to come to your side, just, you know, there's more of us, so get fucked, we don't care, we're gonna, you know, just shit in your face. Like I don't think that's very effective in moving people to your side.
I think
the point is go ahead, Pixel, please.
I just think that in America, especially because of the polarization of politics and discourse in your country, what ends up happening is every single issue is broken down into two sides. You guys lose all capability of nuance, because it's like, this is my team, that's what they think, I pick this side. This is my team, that's what they think, I pick this side. And it results in this horrible situation where, yes, I kind of agree with Brys that you have to have some sensitivity to the people who are scared of getting vaccinated, because it's not all they're not all doing it for the same reason. We're experiencing the same thing all around the world, but you have to approach these situations with like some sort of tact, but that is not possible in America because of your political discourse.
I think it is possible. I just think that it's been extremely poorly executed.
There's nothing we can say to these people to get them to take the vaccine if they don't want it.
No,
literally nothing at this point.
I don't think we need to.
There's not. There's literally nothing. All we can do is punish.
Well, I'm
people
interested.
have been alienated because it wasn't done correctly in the first place, right? Like a lot of people have just gone into the fuck the government sect when before they might have been kind of in the middle, like maybe I'll get it. There's not a lot of long-term research for this specific vaccine, not just mRNA vaccine technology in general. And they don't have a PhD. They don't know anything about the medical field. They're just thinking, this thing's brand new, I don't know if I should get it. And then the government's like, if you don't get it, we're going to hold you down and shove it in your arm, or you don't get to have free will. And then they're like, well, fuck the government. I'm not listening to that. I'll do whatever the government tells me not to do. And then they're completely alienated. And then that's when you lose them. Then that's when there's nothing you can say that's going to make them get it. When you just completely instilled distrust in them.
So my body, God's temple. People just have not had any respect for one another, especially the liberals have not had any respect for the decent conservatives.
I guess I just want to so wasn't it the mask mandates were first, and then vaccine mandates kind of lagged behind, right? And was a direct
Well, the vaccine wasn't even developed.
It was
right. So
there was no
conversation.
Yeah, it was a direct reaction to people, like the holdouts, right? That's the vaccine hesitancy or whatever became a thing after vaccines had already first started.
Yeah, already been politicized. We already had Republicans trying to push this narrative against masks and against the sort of Democratic response to COVID. Right. This was used by a lot of Republicans as a smear campaign against Biden and the Biden administration. So if you want to complain about people politicizing it, there you go.
Well, I mean, a lot of
I'm not defending all Republicans. Of course, people are going to politicize it and use it for electoral politics to attack each other, for sure. But you can't just look at that and say, well, they did it, so everyone's doing it, and we're going to jump in.
The thing is though, our initial response wasn't these really strict vaccine mandates or whatever, right? We tried to make these things available, the vaccines available. We tried to inform the public that these vaccines are safe and everything like that, it hasn't been effective for some small minority of people. What I want to hear is like, what more could we do to make people more willing to take the vaccine for those that haven't?
They don't have to.
No,
Leave
that's
them
the thing.
alone.
I'm not willing to concede on that, right? I don't think that like the point
you
is
don't get to
like
go
That's because
just
you're a sucker.
If you even give them
But
the
you don't-
choice, if you even give them the choice, there's a far greater likelihood that they're actually going to get it than if you don't. Like,
But would you have got the booster if you weren't going on that trip?
I was already I actually got vaccinated.
I know. Would you have got the booster though if you weren't going on that trip?
Would I have gotten the booster? I don't know if my girlfriend had
But that's a
wanted me to-
no.
I don't know.
If your
Maybe.
girlfriend wanted you, it sounds
so
like
you're
a
admitting
very
that you need some sort of
female-minded
outside
opinion.
pressure to encourage like some people to get a vaccine, right?
Okay. I mean, I guess sure, maybe I wouldn't have gotten the booster if I didn't go to Spain, but like,
Because you're not going around getting people sick.
but I'm also not.
Well-
I'm not somebody who's like saying that I don't want to
listen.
get vaccinated. I'm not one of those people you're talking about who you can't get through to, right?
Yeah, but you're
But-
making arguments that people shouldn't be required to or have their freedoms restricted if they don't.
Yes.
And I just
Yes,
don't.
you shouldn't. You're right. Yes, you shouldn't have your freedom because you think differently than other people, and because you don't want. You shouldn't have your freedoms restricted based on your history. I think that's absurd.
So you realize that opens like a really, really bad number of doors, right? Like the general idea that because
So does
things
restricting
differently,
people's
that
free will based on their medical history. Also,
China-
that's a very bad
medical
thing.
history, sure. If you're getting that specific, yeah, medical. I don't think anybody here would disagree with that.
I mean, yeah, I think everybody here disagrees with that except Hake,
Mm.
or maybe
No,
also
but the specific you have a very specific condition there. And that condition is that medical history, meaning that there's something that doctors have said, like you have a conditional, something that's prohibitive for you getting the
that's
vaccine.
not what I'm saying. What I'm talking about, like a medical history or medical status, I'm talking about having the not having the vaccine. That's what I'm talking about.
Oh,
It
wait.
is a medically administered vaccine. Your medical history or medical status should not
Right.
determine whether or not. you
How
are-
is proving vaccination status at all an infringement on your right to privacy when it comes to your own health?
Wait, repeat?
How is proving vaccination status for COVID or any other vaccine at all a violation of your right to privacy when it comes to your health?
Did I mention the right to privacy? I just
Well, that's
said-
what you're talking about.
I
You
just
you,
said that
you said that you're concerned with forcing people to disclose their medical history, right? That's exactly what we're talking about.
That's not what I said. I said that restricting people's free will based on their medical history is the problem. I didn't say that it's like I didn't even to disclose their information, or like obviously you would have to disclose your medical information for the government to be able to restrict your free will. But that's not my problem. Like I haven't even like talked about privacy or anything like that. Obviously, like I guess maybe that could also be a problem, but the bigger problem is the government stepping in and saying you're not allowed to go anywhere unless you've been vaccinated. That's the problem. That's the problem. It's not. I think you kind of like. I don't know if you did it intentionally or unintentionally. There, I think you kind of strawman me. And also, I haven't mentioned like specific like laws or the Constitution or anything.
And
I
you
would
guys
love
are-
to see
it's a
a
problem.
private system. Like I'm not against people like businesses saying, I don't want to let people in here who are not vaccinated. I think that's perfectly fine. I think we should have vaccine certificates, passports, if you will, and we should let people decide let people who have property decide what their policy is for people. I think that probably could have been much more effective. Perhaps even some sort of liability system where you can actually, where you can be, if we could keep track of where people were, and we might be able to have a system for actually, suing people or holding people accountable for transmitting COVID to someone else. You'd have to, well, it's pretty complicated, but there's a lot of solutions to this other than like a blanket authoritarian policy that could have worked much better and would have agitated people a lot less, I think.
But why do you say authoritarian? Like, this is nothing near authoritarian. Authoritarian is like controlling what TV stations are on, and I mean, this is ridiculous to say this is authoritarian.
Because the authority figures are saying this is what the rule for everyone. period, the end. Right? That's what I mean by
Authoritarianism is a spectrum, right? Like you can have different levels of authoritarianism, but telling people that they can't have free will if they don't get a vaccine is absolutely
by that logic, having any federal laws is authoritarian.
Is an exertion of authority. Sure,
the government making all the rules.
Yeah, but that doesn't make it authoritarian,
right?
That doesn't make it an abuse
other
of power.
approaches
That doesn't make it
that are less
oppressive.
authoritarian.
But
and also like we support this. The majority of the people support it. It's not
I don't
like
care what the
one
majority
person
of people
is.
support. Why does it matter what the majority of people support?
Because you live in
majority of people can support
liberal
something that's
society where we agree to be ruled by the majority.
So
no, we don't. That's not what a liberal society is.
If a majority of people said that you can't go in public unless you're wearing like a tie-dyed clown afro wig, would that also should that be a law too? Or like just because the
majority of people want to wear that, then yes, that's
democracy.
the law.
No, majority of people want to
Okay,
minority of people off to concentration camps. Should be
Hake hasn't said anything in a while. He wants to contribute.
Yeah, we're not a democracy. We're a republic. We're supposed to be anyway. Where the minority of sane people are protected from the majority of useful idiots for this stuff. Because the China virus is not polio, and there's no comparison between that. And the vaccine has limited help for protecting yourself or others from you. They're spreading the virus just as also, and this thing is what you focus on is what seems important to you. So you're being trained by the media and by your own brainwashing to focus on this as if it's a main issue that should be focused on. And so you think that you're justified in oppressing other people and forcing them to do what you want them to do. And there's no basis in common sense with it.
I just find it very rich that like you guys complain about this one thing. It's also interesting that it's like all Republicans that don't want this stuff. Like, do you not see how you're being played like a fiddle?
Well, that's because
the majority leadership.
All Republicans are female-brained, right? They're scared because they're too emotional to get the needle, right?
Correct me if I'm wrong.
Used like chumps.
Wait. Okay, let Hake respond.
Correct me if I'm wrong. I think blacks are disproportionately unvaccinated. So you're pretending that it's
an old
only
conservative point. It's not true. It's not true anymore. It's an old talking point. You got to brush up on.
But it's irrelevant. But this vax that you're pretending is so important is so effective that you have to get a fourth vaccine shot, and pretty soon who knows how many.
It's a booster. They're not they lose effectiveness after 6 months. I mean,
yeah, that's ridiculous.
You don't have to get 4 in a row if you.
Tetanus wanes after 10 years.
Yeah, tetanus is something that's entirely different. The mRNA vaccines have a specific half-life. No, they have a designed half-life. The mRNA technology has been studied for like 10, 30 years now.
Since the 80s.
And even longer. But like the specific vehicles have been adapted, adjusted, tested, and modified, updated, literally every fucking word you can think of. And it has a specific half-life, meaning it's supposed to like leave your body. The entire thing that you get in the shot is gone from your body within like 6 months.
Why do you always go back to the blacks? Why do you always go back to the blacks every time you're pushed into a corner, Hake?
I'm not pushed into any corner. You guys are the ones who are wanting to force this thing on people when there's no long-term studies.
Every time you're pounded on and pushed all the way into the corner, you start talking about the blacks as if you were like a black person in a previous life and know what black people experience, have any clue what's going on with the black community.
They're constantly in the headlines. They're quite vocal. They're quite entertaining. I know a lot about what's going on.
I want to come back to this thing real quick. Do you actually believe that like anything that the majority should support should be law, or should happen? So like an ethnic genocide, like if the majority of the population.
But your examples are so ridiculous.
Dropping
the vax is ridiculous. The forced vax is ridiculous.
But what you're saying opens up like an unreasonably large number of doors for disaster and oppression.
None of those doors are opening up, bro. But they could. People are going to ethnically want to genocide people in America all of a sudden.
Okay,
but it's so ridiculous.
The door. Okay, but it's still a possibility in your. If the majority supports.
But doesn't the opposite exist too then?
Yes!
If you let the minority rule, then the minority can do it. So what do you have to do? You have to go with the majority because it's the most it's the only moral ground. It is. Even if they do it, then they did it out of like You can't do anything. It's the majority. You're going with the majority.
We'll never accomplish anything if we listen to every Tom, Dick, and Harry.
Well, I actually have a good faith question here for Hake. I'm just actually really curious how you ratify, like, if you truly believe that freedom within America and your freedom to choose in this situation should be something that is available to you, how do you ratify that with your take on Russia that you had earlier in this panel? Because, like, obviously Russia is an authoritarian regime. Like, how do you justify that in your head?
It's a man's world, and men like Putin throw their weight around, and you can't just expect him to play patty cake, or stuff like this is going to happen. And you guys clamping.
So if in America it was a man that was mandating this vaccine, is that okay? Like, he's just throwing his weight around.
It's a female-minded male who's mandating this. Look at the people on this channel.
Move to me.
It's a
fuck you, dude. You're taking it.
These people are playing. These people are playing mama, thinking that they're protecting people, and they're causing other problems.
Doing? You guys' justification for going into Russia is to protect people, so he's being a woman.
Without naming names,
you guys are.
Why can't they take care of themselves? Why's he got to go in there?
You guys are causing. You guys are causing other problems that you don't realize by doing these onerous mandates and stuff. It's stupid.
Why does Putin have to be their mommy and take care of these people? Why can't they deal with it themselves? Sounds like some bitch assness to me.
What's happening is, you guys are
no, not you guys. Let's talk about Putin. Let's talk about Putin.
We're done with Putin
acting like a bitch. Let's talk about Putin acting like this.
If he's acting that way, then you be man enough to stop him.
Why do I have to stop him? He's acting like
then what? Then what do you even care?
My predator drone. I got it.
Because you're justifying what he's doing.
I'm not justifying it. I'm saying
said
that's
he's
reality.
valid in what he's doing. He's acting manly. It doesn't sound like that in your world.
I said it's a man's world, and men throw their weight around, and you guys playing patty cake with him, or the establishment that you guys voted for playing patty cake with him, didn't work. And it's clear that it didn't work. It's kind of like this guy denying that women are different from men. You guys are denying present reality.
The real problem is that Putin's mother was working and not at the home, and so now he's female-minded and he's emotional, and that's why he's invading Ukraine, right?
I'm not convinced that Putin is unjustified in what he's doing. You guys are acting like
how many people, without naming names, how many people on this panel are female-minded men?
Everybody.
If you had to count.
Yes, I'm definitely female-minded. Wow. I hate men.
Everybody. We all have to overcome it.
Wow.
You would say you are too.
But going back to the serious conversation is, you guys cause more problems by doing these shutdowns. People are dying. People are gaining weight and dying prematurely, but they're not dying of the China virus, at least. So you guys aren't really thinking clearly.
Is that a computer virus?
Well, we were estimated to lose like up to 3 million people if we did not lock down at all. Like the CDC had no faith in us at all. And they're like, yeah, we're probably going to lose like 3 million people. And we didn't. We saved 2 million lives by doing all this stuff. Does that not mean anything?
The CDC also misestimated the count, like even with the lockdowns and like how everything was going. If it continued, the early ones, while Trump was still in
the early
office,
ones were saying like 3 million.
You trust the CDC?
Of course, I trust the CDC. So do you. You take medicine and you take food. Like you pretend like you don't trust the government. You make 1,000 decisions a day, Hake, that you trust the government with your water, like everything. You know what I mean? The car you drive doesn't explode. Like you trust the government 1,000 times over. Yet this one thing you think you're a hero that you're being cautious on.
People don't predict the future very well. Whether it's about the climate or whether it's about pandemics and all that stuff. And people take opportunities to power grab. Even Biden himself, getting back to the State of the Union speech, he mentioned, but we're ready to, it looks like we're past it, but we're ready to take back control if a new variant comes. So they're not giving up power. It's more power grabs for the government. It's a shame. And you guys are falling for it.
I think there's a pretty good chance that there won't be another serious, that Omicron will be the last serious variant. That's what most experts are saying now, and a lot of experts were predicting from the beginning of this variant is that because it's so transmissible and so non-lethal that it will just provide blanket immunity to a lot of people vaccinated.
We have four other coronaviruses we live with. This will be number 5 that just causes like cold-like symptoms eventually.
The other thing is, like, the people are doing it to themselves. It's not just the government. We have people who have an oppressive mindset. I call them like commie capitalist corporations that are willing to clamp down on the people more than even the government wants. And, you know, individuals like IRI and Mindwaves.
What is commie capitalism? Sorry,
Commie capitalism is immoral capitalism, where you try to you support all the LGBT agenda, you support the feminist agenda, BLM, you get in bed with the government and all that stuff. Commie capitalism.
Amazing.
Okay. That
So
sounds like
would you say
capitalism.
let's say that a nation had all of your economic values, like all of them, just like your perfect little nation. I gave it to you, right, on an NFT, right? But there's one thing, and they have gay marriage. Would that still be considered commie capitalism?
Yeah, because you can't really allow you can't call wrong as right and expect the evil not to grow. Evil grows. We have to deal with evil in ourselves and in our lives. Otherwise, it grows. You notice that we often tend to get worse in our vices and more corrupt and perverse in our vices if we don't deal with them, but we indulge them. It tends to you start to cross more and more lines. So yeah, you can't really have a bitter root.
Don't you feel like you're losing this battle, Hake? Like,
what battle?
You're not winning. Like, nobody's like, more people are like supporting gay rights, and like the LGBT community is growing, and like you're just losing, man. Like, you're taking L after L. Like, why don't you just like be a little more open-minded and get on board, mate? Like, do you have any gay friends? Like, what's going on with you, buddy?
I'm fine with the world being evil. The world is evil. Most people are going to end up in hell, and most of us are going to be wrong.
Are you okay with like
I'm
most
okay
of humanity burning in hell? Like, isn't that kind of weird? Like,
it's not up to me.
Why would you want to
though.
accept that?
It's not up to me. That's why I just try to tell the truth, try to look at myself, and engage with you guys.
Amazing.
So,
well,
yeah.
If you're happy, I guess.
Amazing.
Okay, so let's wrap it up. Thank you all for coming to this Hippy Dippy Roundtable. I want to let you all give a little outro, and I want to thank you all for spending your Friday night with me, even though this was a very interesting edition of it. I'm going to now go around the room. I'm going to start with last username because he's doesn't have his headphones on, and I want to take this as an opportunity to go after him.
I heard everything you said. All right.
Oh, damn.
Look. I don't think we talked enough about Joe Biden tonight, and Dylan is clearly very upset about that. Spent all this time talking about issues and culture and life or death, and we didn't spend any time talking about Joe Biden's wonderful speech. So I'm very disappointed in you guys. You can do better. But I tried, and you should come check out my channel, last_username on Twitch, when I will talk about Joe Biden much more than we talked about it here tonight. I love talking about Joe Biden. Okay.
Last username's also part of one of the only official HGC tag teams, the Market Justice Warriors with Fabian Liberty. We'll see them back in action probably soon, as they climb back up the ladder that they so ungracefully fell down. We're now going to throw it over to Mindwaves.
Yo, Mindwaves. I just want to say thank you so much, Hake, for just totally going blow for blow. All right, I love it. I know you mean well. I just think you're extremely misguided, but I love interacting with you. And with that being said, catch me Tuesdays, Fridays, and Saturdays. All right, that's when I'm streaming these days. So yeah.
If you're watching, if there's nothing else on, there's Mindwaves.
Sure.
Throw it over to PixelSmixel.
Hi, I'm Pixel. I am a male-minded femoid who covers the news here on Twitch. most nights. I appreciate the opportunity to come on this panel, and I really only come on them in an attempt to find a husband who I can commit my entire life to. It's very, I'm just so grateful. And oh gosh, I really appreciate the men for putting up with me. So thanks for that, everyone.
It
Thanks.
took a lot of self-control, I'm not gonna lie. Just as a joke, that's a joke.
Yeah, thanks. I don't know if you witnessed the self-control I had in this situation.
Oh no,
as well,
I was
but
watching the whole
time. But yeah, that's me. I'll just throw it up to Erie.
There you
Do
go.
I? Is
All
that
right.
what we do?
Yeah. I'll take it. All right. Well, I go by I'm Really Important. Dylan, thanks for having me. I actually had fun. Last time I was yelling at Cam, and this time I didn't, so that's a improvement. I talk politics on my channel, mostly focus on Capitol Hill, watch a lot of C-SPAN. It's pretty hilarious to watch all the Pokemon on Congress interact. I'm going to a QAnon event next weekend. It's a 2-day event. So make sure you follow my channel. I'll be IRL streaming. There'll probably be about 200 Hakes there, so it should be fun.
Where is this gonna be?
This is in San Diego.
Oh my goodness, how big of an event is it gonna be?
It's Reawaken America with General Mike Flynn and Eric Trump and a bunch of other.
Oh my
nut
god, I
jobs,
kind of
so.
want to go.
I'll fly.
Let me know. DM me. But I'll be IRL streaming there and interacting with all of those special people. So I'm really important. All one word here on Twitch and YouTube and Twitter and all that. So it was fun.
Next, we're going to throw it over to Hake.
Well, just to close it up on Joe Biden, his State of the Union speech, if anybody was falling for it, it's kind of like the serpent telling Eve all these great things would happen if she eats the fruit, and the woman voted for him. I'm James Hake. I'm host of TheHakeReport, which is live Monday through Friday, 9 to 11 Pacific time, TheHakeReport.com. I really appreciate all you guys. This was a lot of fun. I also am an expert on the Jesse Lee Peterson show. I do Hake News on the Jesse Lee Peterson show, citing Commie Nonsense Network, CNN, and many other outlets, including the far-left female-run outlet, The Skim. So check out Jesse Lee Peterson, including Church on Sunday, rebuildingtheman.com/church. I put out his online content for that. Thank you.
Happy to have you on, Hake. Going it over to Carter.
Twitch.tv/Carter. I talk about everything and play games, and Hake has convinced me that I really want to go to hell because all the cool people are there. So
hell is here on Earth. That's the other point that I wanted to make. A lot of you guys are, a lot of us are in hell and don't know it.
Fuck, I
or
love
don't
hell,
admit
dude.
it.
This shit's
Me
awesome.
too. This shit's dope.
Okay, I'm gonna throw it over. To Cam.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. I always enjoy these panels. You can find me on pretty much any platform. CamHigby. Yeah.
Wonderful. I'm gonna throw it over now to my maple syrup fellow. Okay, in the top left-hand corner.
All right. I just want to point out that Dylan started with the Canadian and he's ending with the Canadian. I think this is by design. He's starting to realize that we're like the Canadian overlords. And I think that's based. I just want to say, thanks for having me. My internet actually works. I've learned so much about the female wiring, the female-minded men, evils of the world, commie capitalism, and all this amazing stuff. So I'm grateful for the chance to be here. You can find me at Brys Live, BRYSLIVE. You can stream all kinds of random shit about philosophy, economics, argue shit, and probably start to do more game streaming.
Wonderful. Thank you all for coming on. I wish you all a wonderful weekend. See you guys later.
Thank you, and happy birthday again.
And thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Hake's got to jump on all of you on that. That he's
just a better man.
Hey,
he's a good
convince
man.
me. I said happy birthday in your YouTube comments.
You did put it under my YouTube content.
Hey, I have a question for you. So all these female brained men, should they transition?
Might as well. No, listen.
Hell yeah. All right, you heard it here, guys. Get on the HRT, all right?
Okay.
All right.
Okay, you guys have a good one.
Later.
Bye-bye.
Adios.
Bye.
Hey, you. Yes, you. Right there. You. I am starting a Patreon. I know you guys have been asking for it on the YouTube crowd for a while, since usually it's just the Twitch people who could support me financially directly, but we're finally making a means for you guys to do so as well. And that's not all. You can support the #1 cyber terrorist, mover and shaker, Vince McMahon of Twitch politics. How? By donating to this Patreon and getting benefits like movie nights, special Discord roles, announcements at the end of the video of how much you have supported this war criminal Dylan Burns TV, and much, much more. Okay, not much more, okay? I only have limited means, but more than that, I can assure you. And if you support the Patreon, you will have my deep-hearted appreciation from the bottoms of my soul that you are truly a mover and shaker. Thanks so much for your Patreon money in advance. I will use it to continue to fund the liberal elitist agenda.